Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Picked up people, you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to our first ordinary village board meeting of the month of August, 2022. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll? I'm saying it slowly so that you finish your water, don't worry.
The roll call.
Yes, please.
Trustee Fontaine. Here. Trustee Raymond.
Here.
Trustee Formos. Here. Trustee Baskin.
I'm here remotely. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mayor.
Thank you.
I am here. Minutes are going to be postponed because we had a couple changes that came through, and our village administrator who did them because we have a cast wearing member of the cast. She was unable to type them, so Jen Moskowitz stepped in to do them this week, but she is out, so we will get those fixed up for our next meeting and approved at that point based on those changes that were requested. Everybody okay with that? Then we shall move along. Mayor announcements. Hey, that's me. Woke up this morning to a couple things going on. First things first, the county sent a contract to us for $15,000 related to street sign replacement. So we are now well on our way to getting that approval and money. We just have to approve me signing off on that agreement and finishing everything up with the county, and we will be able to get that money after I believe we have to actually front the money first to pay it back ultimately, but I think the county's good for it last I checked, so we should be okay with respect to that. And again, that's for, what was it, 91 locations of street signs getting replaced throughout the village for urgent need and semi-urgent need signs. So that is a welcome amount of money to come in from the county. Did a lot of discussion since our last meeting with folks in the community related to streets in general. You will see that we have some discussion later on about specifically the High Boulevard to Malta Avenue zone, and we'll get to that later. Did want to talk about some complaints that we had from the Colonial Hills area and the north end of the village. And long story short, a lot of the same types of concerns, speeders or people not stopping for traffic controls like stop signs, etc. Missing arrows where they probably should be for split roads, things along those lines. In the north end, we saw a lot of things related to sidewalks, in fact, obstructions to sidewalks, and we'll talk a little bit about how we might handle those types of issues when we get to the sidewalk discussion later. Overall, my hope is to have a similar discussion like we had for the High Boulevard discussion back when, to talk to the neighbors that are most affected by those areas to see what else might be going wrong that the naked eye doesn't tell you. But Danny Nelson was somebody that I know a couple of trustees had spoken to. Jennifer and I sat down with him on Thursday of last week to talk about the issues in the north end as the Milton Street extension, or Milton Ave extension, excuse me, to Rollins Street, where he lives. And it's interesting as you walk there, you can easily see some issues, and we do want to attack those issues. I know the frustration has been, hey, why is it always high all the time? And respectfully, it doesn't have to be. We're taking kind of the walk and chew gum approach, as I think Christine says from time to time on this whole thing of looking at other streets as well and starting to get some of those results for those streets as well. Water tank inspections, the reports are due back within a week, so we are hoping to progress toward that so that we can help LaBerge complete their report on the water feasibility study. We do have to provide them some more information that I talked to Don Rhodes about, that I will work with the board to get to him over the next week or so as well. He's going on vacation though till Labor Day, so technically we have some time before we have the ability to reopen him directly. Saratoga Ave had the sinkhole that we had talked about. Happy to report that the only thing left to do is the asphalt replacement at this point. Seems to be holding up so far in terms of that sinkhole area. So that's good news. Again, you'll see, I think, partially barricaded on the side of the street where the repave has to be done. And so Evolution Paving will be working on that soon, according to Jeff. swimming under the stars on Saturday night. Saw Liz there, saw Bernadette there, saw a bunch of you there. And it was a great success. I feel like Kate had said something to the tune of over 200 people had attended, maybe close to 250, which was astounding. Just seeing that level of families, saw the Biddles there, looked like their kids were having a good time. So Delilah barely talked to me, so she must have been having a good time ultimately. And that's what it's all about, making sure our families have some great alternative options out there on a night like Saturday night, which was hotter than packed, but everybody seemed to cool down with the pool and the food. So thank you to everybody that volunteered related to that event. One of the things that came out of the Colonial Hills and North End discussions was the idea that we're not always getting the complaints from the villagers about defects in our streets, our sidewalks, our infrastructure, et cetera, that might not be obvious to us at village offices, at DPW, et cetera. We don't want to lose track of these items. So what we instituted was, with Carla's advice to a certain degree, an administrative form that we now have made available via Google Forms on the website. If you go under Forms and Documents, I believe it is, you'll see the link for this Google form. We also have paper copies in Village Hall for those that aren't as adept at navigating. And you can tell us where there's an issue with respect to your streets or infrastructure, sidewalks, whatever it is. And we have a process that we're going to make sure we follow up on it, get out the information where we need to, and not lose track of these issues, because we may be a small village, but there are a lot of small issues and large issues that creep up that you can lose track of very easily if you're not careful about it. And so we have instituted that to make it easier for you as well to reach out to us about things that might be bothering you, especially after hours, for instance.
Mayor, just a question. A lot of times,
Speak good and loud because that
okay,
microphone.
residents will contact the trustee because they know us or we're a neighbor. Should we instruct them to fill it out, or can we fill it out for them?
I would say if they're adept enough to fill it out, having it in their own words is probably the best way to handle it. If they're not, like we had a case this weekend with an email about weeds and sidewalk, we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. I'm more than happy to fill that one out because it seemed like we had a very angry villager that didn't really want to be bothered with that next step. Ultimately, happy to take care of it. We'll get it taken care of to the degree we can. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Glad Chris Biddle's here because the skate park has been a very interesting discussion for me personally. Our village administrator, Jen Moskowitz, has been telling me about folks that have been reaching out to her about getting the skate park back together again. Now, the lawyer in me has been saying, no way in hell, that's a liability risk out the wazoo. Then we heard a lot of things about what happened at the fair and some other things we've seen with teenagers throughout the community over the last months. And we realized that maybe we need to do a better job of providing alternatives for our teens in the area to perhaps stay out of trouble or have fun socially without going overboard ultimately. Chris and I were talking. I didn't realize Chris was involved originally in the skate park being developed. Give us a little bit, Chris, if you don't mind. I know I'm taking off script on this, but just a brief history of the skate park, if you can.
It was late 90s, things were different back then. It was not okay to be into that kind of alternative sports. Everybody that was into that kind of stuff was looked down upon and told, go away, you're not welcome here. So eventually enough people got together and said that we're a legitimate group of this village. We need something that's geared towards us. And eventually enough support was put behind that, and enough money from other groups that we were able to build a small, a modest-sized skate park for kids to go and do stuff with. It was a great time building it. It felt like it really brought a lot of people together. It just got let go to the wayside, and the upkeep was never there. Eventually, it just got shuttered, and now there's just an empty hole in the park. How's that look like?
So there are two conversations I had since you and I originally talked, one with Chief Bush, just to see his thoughts on it from kind of a standpoint of the history, et cetera. I will get to you one second. We just finished say he gave the thumbs up, but also stated that there was somebody to oversee the hours that they were open. So something to consider. Talked to Colleen over BACC at the BSBPA breakfast mixer as well, just get her initial thoughts on it and her staff, and they were open to the idea indeed. So it's something that I would like to follow up on, get some more details for the board ultimately, and see where we can go with it ultimately. It could be a no ultimately, and this year is probably not the year it's going to happen if it came down to it, but it's something to investigate, I think. Liz, you want to say something? Go
Well, I
right ahead.
just want to clarify, we're talking the skate park that's next to BAC.
Correct.
I just want to clarify that.
Yep.
Not everybody knows what the skate park is.
And there was discussion about the fact that I think there may be skating done on the asphalt area over at Kelly Park there in the middle. A lot of people approach us about the idea of pickleball and basketball possibly. And so that's another thing that I'd like to start looking into as well. Again, we're too deep into the summer for this to happen this year at this point, but ideas to start achieving over the next year or so, I'm all for that. And I think the board is as well, to see where we go with it. I'm not saying those are the things we're definitely going to do, but just ideas that have been floated toward us multiple times that I've heard. One other idea that's
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if
Oh,
you can
yes.
hear me, but just one of the reasons they discontinued the park was it was felt it was not being used very often. And BACC was staffing it and they didn't feel it was a good use of staff time. So that was definitely some feedback that I've heard in the past, that it wasn't well used.
It's something to look at as we deduce. Like I said, it's an evaluation to take place, not a definite either way, ultimately. And go and take your hand down there, Ben. When you do definitely have something to say, well, I'll look for that too. That'll be a good way to signal if I'm not hearing it for some reason.
Okay, thanks.
And you scared Christine, I think, when you talked. She's waving. Ice skating is something that we're all kind of used to over the years. And Amy Jenkins and company had come in to talk to us about the rink and some of the issues that they've had historically with getting it settled in. We reached out to in real time when we had our meeting Friday to the school district, because the location of the rink is basically Eastern Avenue, right next to the rec fields. And so it's school property. The rink itself is on. Ed Martin, I actually reached out to facilities and security. It made sense. And he said unequivocally and wrote an email ultimately to back it up that they support it. We just have to get an agreement like last year's agreement signed off on. I sent that over to Carla to evaluate so we can start getting moving on that, because I believe we didn't have an attorney last time that was actually done. I don't know if you actually got to review it, so we'll get that looked at one more time. But Ed was extremely supportive on the school property being used, and a little bit of the minutia about whether or not Bark was going to be able to cooperate or not. And essentially the request should go to the school to get the Bark is what he said. So we have
I'm
a,
glad, because
Yep.
the folks behind that really want to keep it at the rec field.
yep, and we made sure in real time that we gave them that reassurance, and Ed was very, very good to take that call and give it to us.
Yes, just something to add there. The school has always been okay with having the skate park there. Bark has been more ambivalent about whether it works for them. And so really the need is to reach out to Nora and the Bark board and see if they're willing to do it for this winter.
And like I said, it's going to probably, that request will probably go through the school district ultimately to reach out to Bark that way, to the degree that we need to intervene. We said we try to, mend any fences or pave path or whatever is necessary. But I think for now, we're going to let them go on their own accord and see where they go with it. And if we have to help out, we help out. Not great. We'll have a skating rink with no issues this year or next year. I guess technically January is the heart of it. Was approached by an organization, I believe it's CHPE, about an underwater or underground, both actually, electric transmission line, over 300 miles of it from Canada down to Lower Manhattan. And you may ask, what the heck does that have to do with us? Well, they spotted our 30-acre parcel in the town of Malta, which we're trying to figure out. Yeah, it's funny just looking at tax back numbers. You're like, where do we have 30 acres of free land, essentially? And they need 10 acres of it. And we deduced, oh, it's the Malta site. Essentially, what they need is a staging area and pop-up offices, etc. I will tell you, their offer to us, it was essentially $10,000 per month for up to 3 years, possibly, which is unnegotiated so far, and I can't go beyond that, just to say that was what was sent to us directly and would be foilable if you sent for it ultimately, so there it is. And we are working to figure it out. I believe there's a shooting range up there, some snow storage, et cetera. It goes on up there as well during storms. We will figure it out with DPW and the police to make sure that we don't disrupt operations before we take next steps forward. If we are to take next steps forward, obviously we come here, and then we also talk to the town of Malta to see where we go with that, and the county, because I believe the county has some involvement with respect to this line and their feelings on it. So I think it'll be important to get their buy-in.
Christine can talk about, she met with the board and they were very strong that nothing happened on that plan. So I don't know what they're planning with,
I believe there's been a regime change since that point though too in Malta. So we'll see. I have to meet with them, and like I said, maybe get the county involved as well.
If there's a
Regime.
change, I would also raise the possibility of using that as a DPW site, because there's a lot of acreage. And it could hold the DPW and be quite to the village and solve that problem. But
Stay tuned, as they say. So we will have a lot of discussions related to that, I'm sure, in the future. We had a, let me actually say this was the last, I guess. Wiswall Park cleanup, thank you to everybody. Thank you to Gina and Mark and Judy Esposito for really rolling up their sleeves to get the collective community effort together. It was tremendous. The one takeaway I had is, honestly, we probably need to get a real, quote unquote, real landscaping firm beyond just our mowing in there, maybe a couple times a year to take care of routine stuff, and then maybe we can beautify beyond that once we're at that point. I think what we had was just such overgrowth, et cetera, that it needs some regular care, and then the extreme TLC that our villagers can provide it. And so something to take a look at. Obviously, this year is almost over for the main use for that, but for next year, looking at even with any things going on in Front Street and underneath there and everything else, still should be maintaining the landscaping of that area. So something we'll be looking into in terms of pricing, et cetera, for that as well.
we do have some quotes that we got from landscape firms. They may have changed, but to basically beautify the park, take out some bushes, cover the bishop's weed, which literally pops back again.
Choke it off.
So, well, the thing is just cutting it won't get rid of it, but they can cover it and then put mulch on and make it look a whole lot better.
I'm not going to take your hand for this. If you want to add to it, I'll give you a second, because I'm just going to do it. This Family Fun Day. This is the last meeting before Family Fun Day, because our next meeting is the day after it, or at least the last official meeting before that point. So I wanted to just get a quick update from the organizers to see where they are. If you want to address the previous issue, I'm not going to stop you. Go ahead.
Of previous issues, wanted to let it be known that there will be at least one more park work day. We didn't do it last weekend because of the extreme temperatures. We're waiting to see. It might have to go after Family Fun Day because obviously we're a little booked. But there will be at least one more day of work. To Family Fun Day.
And by the way, this is Gina Morosi speaking. It was Carol Beals was like, I always hear people, I don't know who they are in the meeting. So
Gina Morosi, Kendall Glory Lane, I'm the committee for Family Fun Day. We are in really good shape. We've got all the bouncy houses. I swear I would never say that word again. In place, we've got tons of oh, that's a good idea. I'll show you the map.
Have a map.
well,
Vendors-
you're going to do that. Come forward and show to the camera.
Okay.
Somebody might want to help her unroll it.
No,
and
it's
roll
not
it out.
that.
Okay.
This is Family Fun Day.
And turn to show the camera directly if you can.
Cameras up.
Camera.
Yeah, right there. Up. Look up. Look up. There you are.
This is Family Fun Day along Front Street. Every little block you see, every different color is either a bouncy house, a vendor, a display tent, a food tent, a craft tent, a game tent, or prize tent, information booth, and then,
Where's the dunking booth? So I know where I have to
we
be all
don't have
day.
a dunking booth.
We have a car wash.
Yes.
Close enough.
Dunking.
I can't stress enough the amount of man hours that has gone into this, especially by Mark Webb. He has created the games, created the car wash, created the booths. It's amazing, and you're going to be so pleasantly surprised when you show up on the 21st. The one thing we're not hurting on, but we need is more volunteers. We need people to run the games. We need people to run some of the booths still. And I mean, we're getting there, but we can use more people.
Yes.
Whatever time anybody can give is greatly appreciated. Any questions about what's going to happen? We've talked to all the merchants on Front Street. They're not only behind it and fine with Front Street being closed, they're conducting booths in front of their stores. So it's really a community effort, and the committee's been great. I can't thank them enough, and our volunteers, I can't thank them enough. Any questions?
It might be helpful to give a grid of like time slots where you have that.
Well, basically, it's from 1 to 6, and it's gonna go 32 Street.
Thank you.
We need people from 1 to 3:30, I'm splitting it into 2 shifts, and then 3:30 to 6. Like Don just asked about setting up, that would be before, and
That's at 6 a.m.
and he can speak to Mark Black, so if you need that. Volunteers, Ron Murphy has graciously offered all volunteers are gonna be able to park in the bowling alley parking lot, so we're not taking up space for the participants. So if you can come, I know Liz, Ellie gave me your name, I haven't talked to you yet. Ben, I've got your name, so if you guys could reach out to me, tell me what you can work. Anybody else, we need people there, we need bodies. I know you're, but this is working with you, right?
What about the morning?
Yeah, and we have like 6 or 8 volunteers already.
Good morning, but I've committed, it's my 20th anniversary.
So bring Sandra.
Hot date.
We'll get you out off.
So little
We have other plans.
little truth be told, our attorney's celebrating her 20th anniversary, I believe, this weekend coming up as well. So a lot of 20th anniversaries coming up here. Congratulations. I told her she was a child bride, obviously.
You want something.
Yeah.
I could do early morning to help out somewhere.
Okay.
Then we're taking.
All right, that'd be great. Thank you.
And Carl had an idea. Go ahead, say it out loud.
You might want to contact the Board of Supervisors, the County Board of Supervisors, because they're in your community a lot. So they could come and like supervisor, the chairman of the board would come down and not to volunteer, maybe, but to, just to come and see it, because that would be great to have county folks here.
Great idea, thank you.
Of course, Ellie.
I got a sneak peek of some of the stuff that Mark has been building. It's been bothering me for a community. Like, I got a little choked up. Our children are getting so blessed by this, so I'm really excited about it and encourage people to volunteer. And I'm definitely going to post about it, so I'm glad to do this time. Thank you, guys.
It's gonna be a great event.
And look, it's an event about bringing everybody together in the community. So I sent a special challenge out to Keith Lewis, Dennis Taylor, and Melissa Taylor. Get a dunking booth, find a dunking booth, get a dunking booth, and I will sit in that dunking booth for a good portion to raise money for this event ultimately. So you guys want to see me underwater in more than one way, I'm sure. So here's your opportunity, get the dunking booth.
This is where I get even for getting yelled at and gavelled at the last meeting, right? You got
Okay, thank you for all that as well. Finally, got concerned on Friday with the discussion I had with Chief Bush, and I'm raising it now. How we want to handle it later in the meeting, we'll figure this out, I guess, because I didn't really reach any kind of conclusion with the board on it. But in transparency, The state of policing in our country, not just in the village of Ballston Spa, is very tough right now in terms of getting part-timers to fill shifts in any way, shape, or form, especially in summer months like these that we're facing right now. Chief Bush has been working shifts himself, and the way his contract works, he doesn't even get compensated for that extra time that he works. It's a situation that should be avoided. He's a very good chief of police, but to work beat shifts the way that he's having to do it is something that should be reserved only for real cases of emergency, not for regularity, and that's what's starting to happen. And it's frustrating him, and it frustrates me to see him frustrated in that type of scenario, to be honest with you. Over the years, we have lost 3 full-time police officers. They've been taken away from the police force for various reasons, probably mainly budgetary. The one thing that I've heard a lot about when this whole discussion goes back and forth behind closed doors is, respectfully, if DPW got a $50,000 plus boost in position, why can't we get a full-time officer into place that would replace some of the part-time functions that we're experiencing problems with? And we do have an officer willing to go from part-time to full-time. And we've estimated, based on Julia's assessment, about a $33,000 differential per year. That includes
Health
benefits.
insurance, yep,
Yep.
health insurance, retirement, whatever they opt to enter into.
We also learned through some of this exercise and discussion that we are currently funding 4 crossing guards. We only have 1 currently, and we probably don't have plans to go beyond 2 realistically. And I remember even Noah, I think, saying back when that there wasn't need for more than the 2. So I'm not sure why we've been funding 4 ultimately at the tune of about 7,000 plus fringe benefits. So about 15,000 when you combine the 2 that we probably don't have any need for. And so the question really begs itself, what are we doing here? Why aren't we getting ourselves a full-time police officer to resolve this issue, especially if we have somebody ready, willing, and able to go into that spot? I know we have a police contract being discussed and negotiated right now. This is not part of it. This is a side discussion. I would say that resolving the issues of that contract does not resolve the issues that will remain with getting people to fill time slots, shifts in the police force. And it's something that I think, again, we have a tough time explaining away with respect to how we treated the DPW situation over the last year, and not really going back to fill the void that exists in the police situation. I'm happy to bring this up in other business if you think it's appropriate there. I mean, I don't know how you want to handle it, the discussion. It doesn't mean that we have to reach a resolution necessarily tonight, but I think it's a discussion to be had in real time, because we didn't have much discussion about it when I emailed everybody on Friday. Hearing nothing, I will raise it in either new business or other business later. Liaison reports. Let's start with Ben. Ben, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to report other than I want to thank also the Friends of the Whiz Wall for weeding in the park that day. They did a great job, and there's a lot of hard work. And then we have Tara Madeline Risto today from the Wellness Express is going to update us on her service. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. How's Maine? How's Maine?
Very nice. A little cloudy, but it's beautiful. Not much internet.
A little cloudy here too, so you're not missing much here. Liz?
Nothing, the group I work with met in the last 2 weeks.
Sean?
Not a whole lot to report. Obviously, you brought up Saratoga Ave and they buttoned that up, which reminds me, they did some slip form concrete curb. That might be a place to find out.
Good call. Good call. Oh yeah, it's your credit. Also, you got us. I'm sorry to reach in front of here, but you got us some information on sidewalk specs. It was pretty thick, but at the same time, it's stuff that we can pull some information out from. So we appreciate that.
But otherwise, I think DPW is doing its typical handling fires and putting them out. So.
Is that your theme song or? Thank you very much. Bernadette.
Speaking of fires,
want to emphasize to our community, our fire department's been working very hard right now. It's been tremendously hard with the heat. I ran into Chief Crow and we got talking about that, the heat, the amount of just 90-degree weather and trying to fight fire. He did assure me that they have a partnership with Jonesville, and actually they send trucks up to make sure our firefighters have the chance to cool down and get some water and make some food, some sustenance while they're doing that. But he and I are going to meet later this month and discuss more. So I'll have more updates on the fire department, but I just wanted to give a thanks out there to them. If you don't say thank you enough to them, please do. Just see a firefighter before and say thank you, because they really work very hard. And then just briefly, Business Association, I'll be meeting with them. Hope to go to the next meeting. But there's been a lot of celebrating of anniversaries in the community, and market's been going great. Was there Saturday, it was ridiculously hot. They're out there every weekend and Thursday when it's ridiculously hot, so I give them a lot of credit. And just actually a lot of conversations about new businesses, people interested, either they have home businesses or they're looking to plug into our community. So those are all good things to hear about our village. So that's all I got.
Bob Kovacic's retiring, so I'll audition, I guess, and say that it will be getting cooler throughout the week, thankfully, finally. And hopefully we'll be able to enjoy a weekend without 90-degree temperatures and a power grid stress. Now for sports and traffic, I'm sorry. Let's go to actually our treasurer's report next.
Do you want to do the presentation?
We could do that as well if you'd like. We will go to presentation first by request for our treasurer, and it's a good request. The Wellness Express is something that you may have heard a lot about, but you may not have actually utilized, obviously. If you're of a certain age, you probably don't think to, but even those that are at the age that is the target market might not know about in our village, and something we give money toward, and we would love to see more folks be able to use it or understand it's there for them ultimately. So we want to introduce Tara Madelon Ristow to talk about Captain CHS, the Wellness Express. Tara?
Thank you. Hi everybody. Where do you want me?
That chair is kind of in the camera. We know that for sure. So there you go.
Please pardon my backslide.
Your time.
Okay. So hi everyone. To stay on script, I'm prepared for you. And I really want to thank you all for having us here today from Captain. Community Human Services. I'm also here with Fern Hurley as well. So as we collaborate with municipalities and offer two distinct services for its members, of which we have already started offering more services than just the Wellness Express to the Village of Ballston Spa, I'd like to make sure that you're all definitely aware of that program as well. Let me begin with sharing with you just a little bit of history. Captain, of course, has been around over 45 years, but since 1996, our program's goal with the Senior Services Program has been to link those in need with those who care, and for as long as possible so that they can live in their own homes without duplicating other well-established services. The program was born out of growing concern about the number of seniors and their caregiving family members who were seeking respite and other services that they needed. And there are two parts to our Senior Services Program, as I just alluded to. One, of course, is the Wellness Express, which you are familiar with, and the other is CareLink's in-home services. And the Wellness Express Transportation Program, it's comprised of a team collaborating to provide transportation to medical appointments only. We have a program associate, 3 part-time employees, a captain, along with 1 van. So we have to picture that first, okay? The van is shared between the drivers, and they provide transportation, again, only to medical appointments. It's a first come, first served program. We do provide, in addition to the Village of Ballston Spa, the town of Ballston, Burnt Hills, Milton, Charlton, Galway, and Malta. So that kind of puts it in perspective a little bit. The Wellness Express operates 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, we are not open on major holidays. And again, it's for first come, first serve. The qualifications must be that the senior must be over the age of 60, ambulatory, and non-Medicaid recipients. Our staff is available on phone for scheduling. We reschedule. We do a lot of rescheduling once the people call back and need to have their appointments changed, in addition to reassurance that they are taken care of. They make confirmation calls to the seniors, coordinate with our drivers, who many times will not just drop someone off at the curb, but they actually will many times walk them into their appointments to make sure that they arrive safely. In addition, many times our drivers must wait for these appointments, for example, in Albany, for the senior to emerge from the appointment and then have their return ride home. This is not something likely that you would get from a taxi service or an Uber. Would you agree? Thank you. I'm glad you said yes to that. The Wellness Express and the Saratoga County Office of Aging and Youth, they are complementary. We both refer rides to each other and work together to serve the most people possible. If one of our complementary services were not available, this would result in people not getting access to their medical appointments. Another side note was recently a taxi cab company was no longer available in the county. So again, that started getting more phone calls to my office. We do not measure simply providing people served per year, but also in rides provided and mileage driven. So for example, year to date, approximately 500 rides and 8,500 miles of service has been provided by my Wellness Express team to the areas that I mentioned that we service. Now, CareLinks is the other services I mentioned. It's an in-home service volunteer-run program. And this is where we personally match a volunteer to an eligible senior. The criteria is very similar, the same towns, some of the same towns that I mentioned, and you must be over the age of 60. We provide services that enable the care receiver again to live independently in their own home. And we provide friendly visiting, grocery shopping. The senior can go to the store with them, or the senior volunteers will do their shopping for them. They also do light housekeeping. I would say I don't have maids and housekeepers, but I have people who help you with the simple things, changing bedding, running the vacuum through, things that are very difficult for our seniors to do. I had one senior who told me the other day it took her an hour just to change her bedding. So right away, I'm like, well, that's the first thing we need to make sure that we can help you with. We also, again, it's all non-medical services. So we also provide reassurance phone calls. We have some seniors who ask us just to call them every day just to make sure they woke up. That's huge. They have no one else who will do that, so they reached out to us to do that. Respite and occasional transportation. Again, transportation is there as part of that service. The CareLinks volunteers who provide the transportation utilize a computer-based program, and this is for care receivers for seniors who are not matched to a volunteer, but just need occasional transportation. Now that's for anything. We have a lady who likes to go to the gym, a lady who wants to get her hair done every other Friday, go to the grocery store, go to the bank. It does not have to be only medical appointments, which again, in direct comparison, Wellness Express is strictly medical. Volunteers sign up to provide the round-trip transportation with all the details coordinated through my office. The program relies heavily on volunteers, and in order to provide critical services that help our seniors to feel less isolated and alone, to remain independent in their own homes, and to aid the burden that many of them have family members that live at home, but their families are working. So we get phone calls from family who want someone to come and sit with their family, keep them company, or take them to the store, to the doctor when they're not able to do so. This really helps them to keep the isolation at bay, which, as we all know, the past few years has been really hard on that, especially to our seniors who only leave their homes to go to doctor appointments. The key to our program is the volunteers. The majority of our effort and expense of the program is towards recruiting, screening, training, managing the volunteer services may be provided. Our staff is available 5 days a week. The way it works is we provide an intake, make home visits, schedule transportation, make referrals to other agencies that we collaborate with, as well as provide follow-up visits and reassessments. I rely heavily on my volunteers to be my eyes and ears. So if they're working with a senior who they feel might start to need more than what they are currently able to do, the volunteers know that I have an open door. They call me and they'll say, can you go make another visit to my lady or to my gentleman for a reassessment? And then I see what else they need, if it's something we can help on my end or refer them. We currently have over 200 seniors and about 55 active volunteers. I'm a little lopsided. This year alone, we have driven in this program over 23,000 miles and provided almost 2,800 hours of volunteer services. My volunteers are the core of CareLinks. We have steps to become a volunteer. You need to be over the age of 21, but I'm going to give you an example in a moment. The potential volunteer must complete an online application with Captain, schedule and meet with me for an interview. We do reference checks, motor vehicle reports, background checks. Captain absorbs all of these costs. Our volunteers also provide, you mentioned insurance earlier, our volunteers provide copies of their auto liability insurance, as captain's insurance is secondary to theirs should there be an incident. And once these steps have been completed, there's training resources and a manual, a photo ID badge for their recognition as a volunteer, as well as ongoing monthly trainings that I provide to all the volunteers. When we find a match, that's much more than saying, I have someone who needs a volunteer and I have a volunteer available. We look at lots of little things. Where does the volunteer live? Where does the senior live? What's the personality? I always say, do you want someone really hyper and chatty like me? And I love to see the seniors' response to that one. They either go, yes, can you come? Or they'll say, well, maybe somebody a little less. And I'll go, that's cool. I have someone like that too. So I match people based on where they're at. You know, what are their common interests and what are the opportunities and how much do they need? When the match is made, I schedule a meet and greet between the senior, myself, and the volunteer. We do an introduction, and then before I leave, I make sure everybody's comfortable. We all have little code words that I prep everybody for in the background. And then the volunteer will make sure that they let the senior know when they're coming back. So again, there's peace of mind and comfort for the senior, because many seniors hate to ask for help, as we probably know or can agree on. Yes, no, maybe? Some love to ask for help, but then there's others who are really hesitant. Those are actually my favorite people because I love being able to help them see how it's okay to ask for help. They did it all their lives, now it's their turn. My volunteers simply track their hours for me, their mileage, and they report them to me at the end of every month. My volunteers receive much training and communication between weekly emails to share with them their volunteer opportunities, to share with them and keep them in touch with the program. They have a private Facebook team page to promote the team spirit. Monthly Carelings gatherings where I bring in guest speakers to speak on topics relating to seniors, resources in the community, which helps develop them further as a senior and volunteer. We have bi-monthly newsletters, which I did bring for you. If anyone would like, you're welcome. I've got a whole stack. Take one with you. It tells you more about the program. I have an annual required training for all my volunteers, and it's a great team building activity as well. Then we also do annual one-on-ones with all my volunteers, so they have say, input, and feedback into our program based on what they experience, because they're the people who are in the field. Hopefully you see that this is a really, the program, when it comes to volunteers, I take it very seriously because I want everyone to be happy and fulfilled with this. We look for everyone to be able to have fun, make a difference in their community. And one of the things I hear from my volunteers is that they like that it's the flexibility. It's based on their availability. It's not something that, oh, I have called them and say, geez, you didn't do anything last week. So we just keep it open and fun for them. And they're building relationships with people. Our gatherings are not required, but we definitely encourage all of our volunteers to come and bring their care receivers with them. Again, another way to get them out of their home. Everyone is welcome to everything that we do. We also, again, just to reiterate for you, the seniors must be over the age of 60, reside in Clifton. The program is in Clifton Park, Half Moon, Malta, Ballston. We have already begun this year, at the beginning of the year, for the residents in the village here. Charlton, Burnt Hills, and the city of Mechanicville, which is the Saratoga part of Mechanicville. If you know anyone who's interested or needs services, please again take some information with you. My phone number is on everything over there, and it's just simply a phone call. I double check their address, where they live, and if they're over the age of 60, it doesn't cost anything for the program. They're signed up within 5 minutes, and the process starts. It's very, very simple and easy. We also have recently started 2 additional programs. One is the Adopt a Grandparent program. I'm really excited about this. My granddaughter, I have 5 grandchildren, and my 4-year-old granddaughter is matched to 4 seniors in the community, where she goes and visits them and takes them out to lunch or shopping. She loves to go to Trader Joe's with them and put the groceries in the basket, but I think she thinks it's for her, but we started doing that. And when she graduated from her little preschool, the senior actually called and said, could I please pick her up and bring her to the graduation? They're becoming family, and we recently matched 2 other families, 2 seniors, so it's a beginning of a process. And the other thing that we implemented this year is a care team, where we form a team of volunteers around our care receivers. If I have a care receiver, one example, a woman who lives all by herself in the home where she grew up in, her parents lived there, passed away. Her husband and she lived there, he passed away. Her children moved away. She is blind, is in a wheelchair, and she has diabetes, and she is in danger of losing her foot. She has no one but the Carolyn's team. We put 5 volunteers around her who take turns going to visit her. One goes to her shopping, one takes her to lunch, another takes her to the doctor appointments. One will go and just help tidy around the house. And we form a team of people around our care receivers. And I wanted to share that with you because if you know anyone who's interested in having that service or being part of that team, I welcome you to reach out to me. This is a perfect opportunity for those who would like to serve. And I was talking so much, I went right past the pages, so that's good. That's very good. Let me see here. Here we go. We also do activities again open to the public. We put on a concert, walk trip down memory lane concert. We do picnics, lunch clubs, annual holiday potluck, game day is coming up also in August. Again, this is just things that we newly started this past year to be able to get our seniors out in the community and doing more with their volunteers, not just having a volunteer go and sit with them, and talk to them for 2 hours and go home. We're building community spirit with them. We put the care and care links. And so with that said, I'd like to please introduce to you Ms. Fern Hurley, who is I read this so I get it right, Fern, because I always just call her my boss, the Associate Executive Director of Captain. And thank you so much for your time. I'll be here for any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Fern, does she drink espresso or coffee?
I tell you, it's thank God she works for me. She's a fireball. She just goes out there and meets volunteers and gets them excited about working with seniors.
I'm ready to run for a wall for her, I'll tell you after
I
that.
got your name and number, do you?
Yeah. You're signed up. I just would be remiss if I visited with you all tonight and didn't tell you that Care Links and Wellness Express are a part of Captain Community Human Services. We have over 30 programs and services. Many of those programs do benefit residents of this village. And so, for example, our runaway homeless youth shelter, our services to help people who are facing eviction or who are literally street homeless. Our food pantry can serve Ballston Spa residents. So we have a wide variety of services through Captain Community Human Services, and we're really pleased to be a partner with all of you in the village and meeting the needs of folks that are living here. So please, if you have any questions about what Captain does or can do for a resident in the community, the areas that we work in are hunger, homelessness, economic crisis, community support, and empowerment. One of our unique programs, we have a course called Getting Ahead, where we teach folks who are struggling with living in poverty how to get ahead. It's a class that they take about how to get by or get ahead instead of just getting by in the world. I know we've had a resident of the village recently take that course and our follow-up course, which is called Staying Ahead, Money Matters. And they're really powerful things that we offer people who want to make a change and a difference in their lives. So on behalf of Captain, where our motto is lifting people up, building brighter futures, thank you for your support.
I just want to lead off with a question. Generally, what can we do for you? Obviously, money is money, and there's money given by the village. But what can we do to help make sure that more folks are able to use your services in the village?
Well, Mayor, what I love is that you're going to lead by example and be a volunteer. So really what I need. But at the same time, yes, volunteers is huge, but just helping us to spread the word. And like, as I mentioned, I did also bring resource books here for everyone. Please take them. They're loaded with resources and phone numbers and things for the community in all of this area, you know, based on whatever it is that your needs may be regarding seniors. So really it's helping us to get the word out about the services that we do provide and volunteering. So thank you, Mayor.
Good luck. I have a question. Your services with the sound very much like companion care, which is a paid service. So do you have certain requirements that, you know, economic at all? So, and you don't charge residents, so.
Yeah, and our volunteers are strictly volunteers. They are unable to receive any tips, gratuities, or gifts of any kind. We always say that, of course, we are contribution based, so if someone would ever like to make a contribution, I always say, please make a check out to Care Links, because then I know it's going into that program, or the Wellness Express, but it's not required whatsoever of any of our seniors.
That's interesting because, you know, in a way you're competing with for-profit groups.
Yes,
And provide, I think probably there's a lot of people who don't qualify for Medicaid, where there are services, but can't afford $20, $25. And I
yes.
know I purchased those services for my mother a few years ago, and they were up to $25 an hour. And that really adds up when a senior needs a fair amount of assistance. So
That's the key difference is that our volunteers are not medically trained.
Right.
We do have some retired nurses, but I don't promote that out there. But what happens is they're friendly visiting. It's their companions, so to speak. But our volunteers generally come once a week for a couple of hours. So whereas if we have someone called, say, I need someone for 3 days a week for 4 hours, that is not our service.
so it's sort of pulling that.
But there is a way that I can piece things together for people, and I will share. Just use this as one of your many resources, and I will point them in directions to other agencies that we do work with, where they can do that themselves.
Great.
And I'd like to introduce you to your other newest volunteer, Ben Baskin, who's got his hand up.
Hello. Yes, we've been emailing back and forth for some time now, so it's nice to see your face, Tara, and Fern. Thanks for coming to this meeting and for all your good work. Wonderful organization, and it's been great to work with you. And just to let people in the community know, I recently sent Tara the names of a number of organizations, and this really is an underutilized service within the village. And so I'm encouraging Tara to reach out to these organizations. We have such a great volunteer base here, and I think the gap is just knowing that you guys exist and doing that, making that contact. I know Ray Otten is in the room, and he's very interested in making contact with you. So I just encourage you to reach out to the organizations, and we have a number of different Facebook pages that are volunteer based and volunteer oriented. And I'm confident that you'll be able to find more volunteers through that effort. But thank you very much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Well, folks, no other questions here? Anybody in the audience with any questions? Hearing none. Oh, wait, Ray Otten, the aforementioned.
Jen was right.
There you go. And again, thank you for all that you do, and tremendous services and presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave everything here for all of you. Your
Awesome.
resources.
Thank you.
And if anyone needs to, I'll bring this on there. Good luck.
Thank you.
I want to go back for a second. As I was listening, something popped up that I wanted to actually get out, but I didn't have the information until now. Sad to announce that Robert Bob Mundell of Ballston Spa, New York, passed away of the Union Fire Company #2 on Friday, August 5th at St. Peter's Hospital. I'll read the brief words here from the obituary that I found. He was born at Ballston Spa to Harold and Ruth Mundell on March 1st, 1949. He was a graduate of Ballston Spa Central High School. Bob worked for 34 years at the Grand Union Company, and when they closed, continued working for another 10 years at Price Chopper. As a lifelong resident of Ballston Spa, Bob contributed a great deal to the village as a lifelong member of Union Fire Company #2, having volunteered for 49 years. During his younger days, Bob also worked part-time as a village police officer. Bob was a helper to so many, always willing to give his time. He loved spending mornings at the firehouse, or working the fish fry fundraiser, or helping with the old timers tributes. Bob's fellow firefighters awarded him with a lifetime membership this past year, which meant the world to Bob. Although he loved this brotherhood, there was nothing more important to Bob than his family. Bob and Suzanne celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary this year, and they were by each other's side every step of the way. Bob was most proud of his son, Scott. Scott and Abby have created a beautiful family, and Papa cherished his granddaughter, Marley May. Quote, Papa will continue to watch over his sweet Marley May. Needless to say, the services are going to be on Friday at Armour Funeral Home from 5 to 7 p.m. for those that were friends or family. So please get out to send your condolences to the degree possible. Also, contributions to the Alzheimer's Association in the obituary. So a moment of silence if we can for Bob Mundell and Union Fire Company number 2. Thank you. Julia, Treasurer's report.
All right, so lately I've been getting in contact with auditors, the dreaded word now, for the fiscal year end audit, as well as contracting for this single audit, which is a requirement of the USDA funding. I don't have any contracts in hand. It's like pulling teeth with them to get them to be on board with providing the service, let alone get the physical proposal in hand. That to be said, the auditor that did our fiscal year end for 2021 has shown interest in putting together a proposal. His intention is actually doing a 3-year contract for 3 fiscal year ends to ensure that he has responsibility of the audit when the USDA single audit is required. Also, he has the intention of putting in that proposal a gap financial statement, which would be more than the AUD that's required by the state. That to be said, between working with myself, the accountants, and his firm, we should be able to have a clean audit moving forward. But until that proposal comes, right now we're just waiting. When it does come, I'll be sure to pass it along to the board. I did, going on to the thought of gap financials and whether municipalities our size and villages our size do gap financials along with their AUDs. I did reach out to the village of Round Lake, who just submit AUDs, no gap financial statements along with that. And I did reach out to village of Corinth, who do the same. They just submit the AUDs. So if that's something the board still has in mind to do the gap financials, that is the first proposal we would be getting from the auditor. But just doing an AUD with end of year AUD audits is still up in the air, and we still can contract with the auditor if that's what's chosen.
Give or take between the accounting escalation in costs and the auditor escalation in costs that goes hand in hand in something like this. What is the jump in cost that you can estimate, at least? Obviously not holding you to that.
Yeah, so our last end of year audit was about $9,500. That is cheap just for an end of year AUD audit. That would increase no matter what, but with the gap financial statement audit, you're looking at about $20,000 to $30,000 for that audit. The auditor does believe we'll be on the lower end of that.
Have you checked with some of the larger?
I have not, just because usually they have more funds than us, but I can definitely reach out.
Well, I mean, trying to find somebody who's sort of like size and budget.
I can do that.
Yeah, see if they're doing it.
Okay. Going
Julia,
on.
sorry, just thought as far as my sort of inclination is, I don't know that we need a gap audit, but there were items within the audit that we did do that could be corrected, and that's where I might spend energy.
Yep, and I have another point just right now that I'm going to touch up upon. One of the adverse opinions on the audit was for OPEB, which stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. It's not required by the comptrollers in our annual update documents, but it would be good to have, and it would get rid of one adverse opinion that we did have on this last audit. I have reached out to one firm who provides this service. It is something that is contracted usually amongst municipalities. The initial, it's actually called the Gatsby 75 actuary report. It's initially about $3,000 to $4,000 for the creation of that report, and about $2,500. Some say every year, some say every other year to keep that up to date. So that would get rid of one of the adverse opinions on the audits statement. And then lastly, hopefully this is better news than the audit. Due to the increase of cash from just receiving most of our taxes and now going into the water and sewer billing, I was able to invest an additional $1 million into investment funds. Yes, the rates right now are not great at all, but are on the uprise. Currently, the village does have about 2.7 in investments. This is not to be confused with unallocated money or unallocated cash. The current yield that we do have 2 funds that we put our money into is about 0.16 to 0.30% between the two. So they're very, very low, and that's a monthly yield. But that's all in place.
Don't spend it all in one place. Thank you very much. Old business, I'm gonna kind of shortcut sidewalk law. Ben, I know your name's down here, but I just want to kind of update where we were based on the fact that Carla had a little trouble getting a full-fledged sidewalk law, but we also had some open questions we were discussing today, just to land us where we are now. We're still obviously aiming to handle the question of raising the money back to somebody installing or repairing the sidewalk and how to exactly accomplish that. As the week went, or the last couple of weeks went along, we also just sort of started looking internally at these questions of where do we have deficiencies with our current law, not just in the reimbursement plan, but also this whole gift versus need to make things happen along the way on sidewalks situation. How do we resolve these issues? Case in point, if you walk behind Dunkin' Donuts, Danny Nelson had taken Jen and I up that sidewalk there, and you'll notice overgrowth all over the place with bushes that are growing from, let's say, the landowner's property onto the sidewalk to a point that you can't utilize the sidewalk anymore. When I went with Ed Martin and Jen over through the streets between High Boulevard and Malta Avenue School, there's a zone on Chapman Street where there is somebody's hedges literally overrunning the entirety of a sidewalk on one side of the street. How do we get into a position where we don't have to wait X number of days or go through a very, very tough code enforcement process if necessary and handle these situations so we get our sidewalk and ability to walk down it back ultimately? So these are the types of questions that are mysteries. Also, we got sent pictures of weeds growing from Milton Avenue sidewalk properties that it's a tough question. Do we have a matter of right ability to go and take care of a situation like that for free? Or is that too considered a gift ultimately where a code is written? And even the worst one in terms of just the way we've done it maybe isn't really the way we can get away with doing it anymore. When we go and pave a street using CHIPS money, we are required to make sure the sidewalks alongside of the street are ADA accessible. Well, when you make an improvement to a sidewalk, that technically, again, is the responsibility of the property owner. But we're being mandated to make the change to the sidewalk ultimately. So should it be the responsibility of the property owner under those situations because we're basically getting that mandate and putting it onto them? Or should we be able to do this as a matter of right ultimately with some warning or something along those lines? So all those questions I kind of dumped onto the lap of Carla over here. She's just thrilled with me. Can't wait to celebrate her anniversary and think about these issues, I'm sure, this weekend. But if you want to update folks on where we are with respect to this.
Absolutely. So I actually have an email half drafted to the board that I just realized I never finished about all of this today. As I was drafting the revisions you wanted with my notes and the minutes and what I recalled, and Ben, you had an email that you had sent out that had everything in it as well. There's a lot in here that you might want to revisit. For example, do you have a committee of streets?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Do you have a street superintendent? So that's in your law.
I guess we used to know.
So well, the law, you must have codified everything in 1996 because everything says it came from 96, but I'm sure you didn't, that's probably not what happened. So what I wanted to do is what I've put out for you folks is a list of each of the sections and what I think might want to be changed. I'm not trying to completely rewrite your law. That's not what the intent of this was. The intent was really just the reimbursement, but as the mayor said, as you're looking at it, why not do it all at once?
I agree.
So with your permission, that's what
No, I mean, it's
with the
like-
assumption of your permission, I've been doing that.
A lot of our code needs a rewrite.
Right, well, some of it also doesn't, you folks just passed the outdoor dining, which now is not in coordination with your sidewalk law. And some of the things the mayor and I talked about today with respect to the sidewalks was, that overgrown bush. Well, if you're on somebody's, like if we lived next to each other But if we were next to each other, I see nothing. And he had a tree on his property completely, but overhung onto mine. I can cut everything that's overhanging onto mine.
I'm gonna chop it down so it lands on your property if you keep that up.
And then I have a claim against you. But irrespective of that, if we have a sidewalk, well, who owns the sidewalk and why do you own it? And where do we have the right as the village to go and cut hedges off, or do we have to give notice to do that? Or all of that's not in here.
Well,
So-
I think the sidewalks, at least from what I understand, belong to the village. They're in
Well,
the
not the
right.
walk itself, but the underlying, like, who owns, is it 3 feet?
So
Is it 4
yeah,
feet? Is it 6
the
feet?
the right of way differs street to street in the village.
Yeah.
And trying to find which is which and what's what, good luck.
Well, I mean,
So these are just,
no, but I mean, it's my understanding correct. The right of way belongs to, and the sidewalk is in the right of way, but responsibility for maintenance and clearing is the landowner.
I would say that
Is
you
that
are
true?
half correct. I think that the sidewalk may not always be in what is the technical right of way. We can't indicate one way or another an answer to that question because you can't find enough information to say yes, absolutely on that. And that's the problem.
and but I was just raising there's ways we can deal with that by giving notice, like, hey, you gotta cut your hedge down, and if you don't within the next 5 days, we're gonna do it, and then we're gonna charge you back. Or things
Well,
of
with
that nature.
hedges, it could be an issue because the base of the hedge is maybe on their property, but it's grown.
But that's
something
my
like a
point about the tree, right?
Yeah. And
So-
we have the right to slice it down.
Right, so in any event,
the homeowners.
this all came up, which is why you don't have the law for you. And so I'd like to go through that, send that email to you, both, get your comments back about what you want to change.
I guess the other question, which I don't know if you've gotten any feedback from BSBPA about the businesses, we raised one possibility that they would not get as high reimbursement, and to balance it more towards the homeowners,
Right.
which I'm not saying I prefer one or the other, but was an issue that you had requested.
And it still is an issue, and I don't know if we can really do that, but I haven't looked into that specifically. That was one of my
Yeah,
questions here
well,
too.
the question legally, can you do it?
Right.
And there's the question of the response. of
Right, and I haven't had the opportunity to look.
And Christine and Sandy I talked to at the mixer, they were wanting to come in, but obviously with everything that was happening last week with weather and everything, we haven't had a chance to sit down. But they do want to talk more about it and then go to their membership as well. So this buys us a couple of weeks here to get this finally done the way we were intending to. I think Dana gets back as well, so she might be able to run this through as well.
The
Yeah,
other
go
issue,
ahead.
sorry, the other issue that we didn't bring up at the last meeting, but it has been brought up previously, and the number of community members are interested in this approach, and it'll be interesting, Carla, to hear what you think of it. When properties are sold, that there's a requirement to bring that sidewalk up to code, and it can be negotiated by the seller or the owner or the buyer who does that. But that was something that a number of people just independently suggested as a mechanism for improving properties. And I talked to someone at Nikon. They weren't sure if the village has the authority to do that or not. It might take some research, but I know several board members at least are interested in exploring that. I don't know if you have any initial opinions.
I'm not sure. I kind of agree with NICOM. I'd want to do research on it because what you're doing is you're inserting the village into the private sale.
Almost as a lien almost.
And right, you're saying to the purchaser, you can't buy this unless you do X, Y, and Z. And I mean, that's kind of like a proration is what you're talking about, perhaps, like with water and sewer, you have prorations, but I don't know is if you can require them to bring something quote unquote up to code. If they're just, you can't do, for example, you can't do that when they go into a pre-existing non-conforming house. You can't require them to bring that to code to purchase it. So that I can look into it,
I'm not
absolutely.
too sure how a title company would, A, have record notice that it exists, B, even enforce horse at the closing table ultimately. So
So there are some municipalities where, for example, when a property is transferred, that the septic system has to get up to code.
That's true. Queensberry does that, Bolton does that, and the Lake George Park Commission is currently gonna do a full blown one. I just wrote those laws. So, but that's, I think that's different because it's more DOH. But, and I think that's a little different, Ben, but if you know of any other municipalities that do this part of it, where it's a transfer.
I think they weren't necessarily equivalent villages. They were maybe in a city. There were a couple of places. One was, I think, out of state that had done this. So I'm not sure if it'll apply to us or not.
Well, any information you have would be great, but I'll definitely look into seeing whether that's something that can be done.
Okay.
No, to the property owners, I noticed that they have to inform any purchaser that this exists. So I know there was the argument, oh, we have to inform all the real estate agents and everything
right.
else, but I think it could potentially put it on the owner. You know, and say. this
But
is-
there's no enforcement. But if the owner doesn't tell them.
and again, title's not going to probably get involved with it either.
But I'll definitely look at it for you.
Yeah.
And again, my guiding principle has been looking at what we need to do to Front Street and making sure that we are able to do what we need to do to Front Street without any issues and with the timing scenario that is quick enough that we're not hurting our business owners on Front Street when we have to repave and do the work we have to do with sidewalks, et cetera. So these are kind of the guiding principles in the test case ultimately for the whole thing.
Where's the right of way line, maybe the F building, on Front Street? Yeah.
Where's
the
the,
right of way line on downtown? Is it? Do we know?
I don't believe it is actually at the building, but I don't believe it's the street either. I think there's something in between.
Not far off.
Right.
Usually it's a drip edit.
I think you're right. I've heard this one before, but I didn't know if it was us or not. Okay, park rules and regulations, we're kind of going to punt here because we're still working on these. And then again, we'll get a sign, once we get some kind of consensus, get signs representative of that while we're passing the law, doing the official business with respect to it. So we'll just kind of skip over that for tonight. High Boulevard, Malta Avenue, School Street Enhancements Action Items. So again, Ed Martin, Jen Moskowitz, and I rode around on Thursday. It was supposed to be a walkthrough, but at 96 degrees, I thought it was a much better idea to stay in the AC and drive around to see the crosswalk conditions. And what we deduced was that there are pretty much the entirety of crosswalks in those streets need to be repainted. The question really became who was going to do it. Would we rely on a company that the school district uses that they might be using up toward, I think the middle school is where their focus is, especially this go around, or if we would use DPW, sorry, Sean, DPW to do it. And we've deduced that DPW does have the tools to do it. They have somebody they're going to train on the machine to do it, and they have glass beads to make it reflective. One of the things in talking to Scott Kearns that I deduced from this whole thing, though, was over time we've been kind of skimping on the level of paint because it's a water-based paint that you might slide on pretty thin to get it done, or to save a little bit of money. I want to make sure that we do it in a way that that paint's going to last a little bit longer. So you'll see that there is a motion later on to authorize $4,000 related to paint, but also in areas where we don't have the completion of the cement to the street side, but you have a sidewalk going by it, to put ADA type pads to connect the street to that sidewalk to allow a crosswalk that couldn't have otherwise been in place to exist in those streets. And Eastern Avenue, I think, has got a few of those, or at least two of those situations. So that costs a little bit of extra money, but it gives us extra crosswalks, extra notice in the street to slow down or stop for pedestrians that need safety barriers ultimately.
Are these going to be the broad stripes? Because what's currently hardly see are two thin lines, which aren't that particularly visible.
We can work on that for sure and give the guidance back to DPW. I almost did it again. DPW on that as well. And Sean, if you want to give some
Actually,
input.
what I sent you has.
Yeah.
The dimensions for slider style.
So if you want to show that to them, feel free to. It would help us probably. Again, I went a little high on the estimate side here just to make sure we had enough authorization for them. Obviously, it's in their budget, but at the same time, I want to make sure that they understand this is an action item we need taken care of immediately, and that they have the clearance to do in terms of the financial effect.
Included in signage for those crosswalks.
Currently, no. That would be the next step. Ultimately, we did get the $1,000 signs. I've got to pick up because we've got to finish the payout. I think for those signs, the crosswalk signs there that we had purchased last week, we had voted on. You don't remember, I will give that to you, don't worry. And we could utilize some of those in that general zone as well. So I will also indicate to you, if I can just finish on this point, Ed Martin is going to be writing a letter to the village from the school district requesting strongly stop signs to be placed at Chapman. This is an issue that has been vexing for us because we've been told we need studies done to justify stop signs. You cannot use stop signs as traffic calming approaches. You have to use them for safety at the very least. The school district is very serious about the idea that it is a main crosswalk scenario that leads to Malta Avenue School and needs to have some better protection than what we have currently. So once we get that letter, we will investigate where to go with it next to hopefully avoid the need for a $10,000 study ultimately, and actually get stop signs in place where hopefully they will have a positive effect. That is the one thing that I think Bernadette and I both have heard the most frequent request or thought on that, how to handle things there was Chapman Street stop signs, and we'll see if the school district's letter has any effect in that respect. Go ahead, Sean. I see you teaming good to say something here.
I find that stop signs are used for traffic calming, whether FHWA strongly discourages it because you just change one enforcement problem to the other. People, where you put a stop sign where it's not warranted, people eventually ignore it. And then it actually creates a safety hazard. I'm never a proponent of just throwing stop signs in. If there is a safety situation, you do a crash analysis for a 3 to 5 year period, and there is something that a stop sign can prevent, then at that point, that's something to consider. But without that data, this is strictly traffic calming. Stop signs are 100% not to be used for that. I think that is a wrong direction.
Bernadette, anything?
No, I just mainly, I understand from the perspective, but it is concerning again to me that, we're in the purchase process. It's very defined currently. You can't see that there's lines, but there's no real indication of there's crossing. And, if I were a parent, that children there and attending school, I used to walk to school. I don't know if you walk to school, Chris. I gotta speak up, my dad said. If I were a parent, I'll repeat what I said. If I were a parent that had children that went to Malta Avenue, I would like some sort of stop sign. And like I said, I understand your perspective of your engineering part there, but I used to walk to Malta Avenue. Chris, we grew up together. We walked to Malta Avenue. I'm sure there's other people that walk to Malta Avenue.
Bob Bush, I think, is waving back there.
Ellie Dillon was my teacher at one point,
I walked.
You walked, there's a lot of pedestrians and a lot of children who do, walk around there. So I know from the perspective of the residents, the perspective of parents, seniors, we talk to a lot of seniors, it's concerning, that there's not, it's not even about traffic calming, it's about that there's not an awareness of pedestrian. The more we can do, to show that this is a place where pedestrians are walking, including a stop for pedestrians, that would be great. So I think it's certainly worth exploring with that letter, talking a little bit more about it.
One of the things that your manual had stated, I was coming through earlier today from 2016, I think. And so it's got some age data, but it had some recommendations for speed limits of 30 to 35 miles per hour for 3+ lanes. Now, High Boulevard's 2 lanes technically, but in terms of width, it's really more than that. And that's where I was kind of torn what to take from it. But it did talk about curb extensions as an effective ultra method to get things handled on those streets for pedestrians. And again, curb extensions is another way of saying the bump outs that we've been talking about along the way. So it's not to say that we wouldn't investigate doing both, so that essentially when you get to that intersection, it's going to be pretty loud and clear. Not only are you going to have to slow down and stop, but you're also going to have to heed the fact that there are pedestrians probably crossing it or possibly crossing it. So for now, like I said, I don't have the gear to go in for a stop sign. The school district has said they are going to give us this letter because they're dead serious about this. And I got to sort of give them some credit to the idea that they know probably better than a lot of us what goes on with respect to their kids trying to cross over there. So I want to see what that letter says, and then we can take it from there.
I'll just give you an example. They put stop signs over in the offset intersection where Thomas, I think Garrett is. And there's actually been more near misses of pedestrians as a result of that than there was prior to them putting that.
That is the worst intersection I have ever seen created in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It is almost as worse as Ralph Street in Malta. And honestly, if there was a way to tee off Ralph Street on that hill so that it basically comes to the right angle the right way, we should do it, because not only are you having trouble as somebody trying to come off Ralph Street and try to look back to see the traffic, then you don't know what's coming at you in terms of pedestrians and bicyclists, and they don't know what to do in there either. And if you teed it off somehow, at least there'd be more knowledge of what to do, but it's tough to do. But those are 2 examples of intersections that ain't Chapman Street. Chapman Street is at least a true 3-way stop area.
Well, there are recommendations in the pedestrian and bicycle master plan about those intersections. And it includes narrowing the road visually with striping and, I think probably painted bump outs at least to see if that does make a difference. And if it does, then, you can install. One other question on the crosswalks. I thought the recommendation was to use epoxy paint. Are they using that or not?
They have to use the paint that they're allowed to use essentially. And so it's more of a
I doubt it's
water.
epoxy. It's probably a standard paint. Might be an acrylic, but they do put glass beads in it to increase the reflectivity.
So how long is it's
I think you're gonna get a couple years out of it.
Okay.
But it's something that we have to make sure they continue to do. Remember, the major cost in this one, honestly, besides manpower, obviously, but it's about a day's work according to Scott, for once they get them up and running, is the pads, which are a one-time cost ultimately to get complete sidewalks to allow for crosswalks at certain intersections.
So they already have the slope to be ADA compliant and concrete.
They're basically flush at that point.
I just want to bring up one point. Now, I live on Hyde.
I've heard the rumors.
Yeah, and I walk the length of Hyde, with my pet and see the kids and everything else. I'm a little, I don't know, concerned about just concentrating on Hyde in my neighborhood, because I know there are other areas, and like to suggest, DPW recently did a survey of all the street signs. Could they do a survey of all of our crosswalks and then add in where people have recommended we put a crosswalk and look at the highest need? Now, that may be, that intersection at Chapman, because of the school, but there also may be areas like up on South Street where the old school is. There's a long stretch there. You can't see that. I mean, we have some places, if we could do all of them, that's even better.
Well,
But if we have, only so much funding, I think we need to focus on the areas that really, really need it, instead of just sort of saying, oh, let's do High.
To not cut you off, but to kind of answer your question pretty quickly here, the answer is basically using these streets as the first step and then moving on to other chunks of areas throughout the village to do it. To just say, go out and paint the world right now, DPW, I don't think gives them the real opportunity to see where they can do better ultimately. We're gonna probably give them a spec that they're not used to as well for these crosswalks. So let's get these streets done and then move to the next. And that is not like years-long process, that's months-long process. We also have to be very, very careful now because we're starting to press against their paving season, and we got to make sure that we're not taking manpower away from their ability to pave as well. So
Would we look at possibly hiring a firm that could use epoxy
we
paint?
could, but right
Yeah.
now I think let's see how that we can do it in-house.
I know county probably doesn't use epoxy, they may or may not, but they generally contract, all counties contract with a service. And there could be the opportunity for us to piggyback off their contract.
And same thing with the school district ultimately, but again, I think for now, also getting, like I said, the cost is really going to be completing those sidewalks to allow the crosswalks to be almost universal, not completely, because there are some cases where there's just no sidewalk over on a certain intersection. But in these situations that we were spotting, it's going to be good to just get a first crosswalk in. And then in a couple of years, we're noticing they're starting to wear away. Probably it's a good time to go to the next step if need be. But let's see how they work in the meantime.
Are we including the East High intersection with these crosswalks, or are we just doing crosswalks across High? And the likewise for the Malta and.
The motion reads, the area of focus for this authorization is roadways from Malta Avenue School to High Boulevard, including but not limited to Chapman Street, Eastern Avenue, East High Street, Grove Street, Heritage Place, Columbia Avenue, High Boulevard, and Malta Avenue,
So that the crosswalks will
wherever
No.
possible.
go perpendicular to the ones on.
Yes.
High.
Yes.
Okay, because, I mean, that's really where they're needed the most.
I'm just gonna reiterate that I think stop signs are a terrible idea there. And
Can I
They-
ask where the stop sign is? Chapman and Heritage, you mean?
No, it would be Chapman and High,
Oh, Chapman.
they would make it a three-way stop.
because there's no fourth way.
Yeah, so that.
We'll call it always stop. How's that?
Always stop, yeah. There is signage within some of the details I gave you on pedestrian safety action plan, which was developed by the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee with years of research in coordination with the Federal Highway Administration. And their recommendation, a stop sign is not existent in their manual of recommendations because it is not a pedestrian tool. It's simply not. So a pedestrian tool is a crosswalk. It's also pedestrian crossing signs. You can make them just a standard symbol, or you can make them a home plate, which we call a home plate, where it has the school age children symbol on it. And use the enhanced signage. You can put a reflective strip down the post. In that particular location, you could have signs on both sides of the roadway facing outward. I would recommend that as a treatment before I would ever recommend stop signs there, because that actually identifies pedestrian crosswalks. A stop sign just says you have to stop. And people look for vehicles that don't always stop. They don't look for pedestrians. So unless you sign it so that they know pedestrians are there ahead of time, it's not going to make a difference to them. And just by the way, if people thought that that would be a traffic calming device and slow people down, it doesn't. It's the same thing as speed humps. You can put speed humps on either end. People are going to go faster in between to make up the time. That's just human nature. That's the way it is. And I can tell you from our entire village, there's always stops in this town that would have never met a warrant and are completely unnecessary. But it's the cheapest solution, but it's not the best. It's far from the best. And just that offset intersection that the school recommended, putting stop signs there, just indicates to me, there was a pedestrian hit just last year there. And I've watched it when I had to drive my kids to school. And people aren't paying attention to the kids going there. They're paying attention to whose car is going where.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a question of when somebody's in the box, are they through the stop sign and does the next car advance, or do they have to complete their turn, or where they're going? And it's not clear if they're going to the next street or not because it's offset. It's just so not made for this. It's unreal.
I agree. I mean, a pedestrian crossing.
Eric Conway on the phone for you.
Yeah, oh, believe me, I have my conversations with Eric already. I would have recommended a crosswalk on the side of Thomas and even RFB, which is the rectangular flashing beacons where you push a button and they flash. I would have recommended putting that there rather than stop sign. Now, yes, that's more expensive. It's not the absolute cheapest solution. But when you're talking about kids' safety, I don't think we should go with the absolute cheapest solution. That's my 2 cents.
I'd like to say we should listen carefully to the expert in the room and think about his recommendations, take them very seriously. Also, I also want to just echo something Liz said, which is I'd like to see crosswalk repainting throughout the village. We don't have that big a village. We don't have that many crosswalks that are faded out. I'm not talking about brand new crosswalks at this time, but as a phase one, I don't think it makes sense, or I'd rather not have all our eggs in the Hyde Avenue Boulevard basket, but rather I think we have the wherewithal to identify all the different crosswalks that are badly in need of painting. I can tell you the one by McMaster and Ballston and the one on West High for my neighborhood are well overdue. And I think we should quickly ask DPW over the next 2 weeks before the next meeting to identify all the crosswalks that need repainting and make that the proposal. And do that, because that would be an efficient use of their time and of our money to tackle this all in one go. I'm not talking again about analyzing where new crosswalks have to be, just where they're so faded you can't even see them, and it's a liability and a safety issue right now. So that's how I'd like to see this approached.
With all due respect, I want us to do something and then evaluate, not evaluate and then do something maybe in about 6 months when we have the time to. We have the opportunity right now to do something on 7th Street or thereabouts.
I'm saying just as we did with the street signs, where very quickly DPW identified 91 street signs that needed fixing based on a resident who came to me and articulated that concern, and it happened very quickly, and I appreciate that. I think within a week, DPW, or we could ask our residents to send in where the crosswalks exist that need repainting, and within a week, we'd have all the data we need, and then we could come up with a budget for what that needs for the next meeting. So I'm not talking 6 months, I'm talking next meeting.
Yes, as we pointed out today, it's not simply a question of crosswalks being repainted, it's also recognizing places where we don't have the ability currently, but might have the ability to actually create a new crosswalk that might be being used anyway, despite the fact there's no concrete or continuation of concrete on that side. And so it's a little bit more than just driving down the street and saying, oh, there's white there, let's repaint it. There's also the question of making sure we have full crosswalking going on, and that takes a little more time. So
well, that's something DPW could evaluate. And there are some good crosswalks that are just need repainting, and that's all they need. So that would be phase one. And then if something needs more, DPW would indicate that and do something later. But I think we can very quickly do the quick fixes throughout the village, not just High Street. So that's my 2 cents.
it's not just High Street, or Hyde Street, it's every street between Hyde and Malta Avenue. It's not small.
Right. I don't see why we can't do a phased approach.
Yeah.
Where we do this now and get that inventory and add to DPW's to-do list like they did.
But I think it has to be with, okay, if we approve this, along with that is the collection of that data. Actually, last year, when I was asked to identify where we have bicycle facilities, where people can park their bikes, I did a little quick, noted where the crosswalks were taken. So I could share that information and they could go back and, check to see if most of those, probably a good percentage of them were never redone except for the ones I know. So they could start with that if they want. And while they're doing it, they can see if there's a for, the handicap thing. I mean, yes, somebody's time, but I think this is an important issue for the village and a safety issue. So I'm willing to, in the motion, when the motion comes up, approve, but only on the understanding that the survey will be done and we'll have a complete list within a few weeks.
Water and sewer rates. Ben, your hand's up still. Did you have anything? Sorry. No problem. Water and sewer rates. The general problem in our village with water and sewer rates is that our timings on our reads and our budget and everything are a little bit skewed off. And it's also not appropriate to change your rates in the middle of a period of usage, because technically you're retroactively charging a higher rate for water or sewer if you do it a little too late in the process. So I'm raising this now so that we begin the conversation of what are we going to do with water and sewer rates. And it's a three-part question realistically that I think we need to begin to talk about. One, are we going to begin increasing them in some way that at least keeps up with inflation and maybe appreciates some of the things that we need to do to start funding capital reserve account for water and sewer type activities down the line? Two, are we going to decouple water and sewer rates and allow one of them to float maybe a little bit faster than the other when we know that our sewer fund is definitely lagging the water fund for reasons of the sewer not being outside of our village for the most part? We don't have the same out of village users that we do for water with our sewer. And number three, I can't remember what number three was now. It's old age hit me, folks. But those first two questions are important ones to start with. And just, I guess number three is actually the timing of all this in terms of the start of it. Sorry, that was number three for me. What are your thoughts going around the table? We're not going to make final decisions in any way, shape, or form on this tonight, but I just want to remind everybody that I believe it's been since 2017 or 2018, depending on which one, that since we've raised the water rate or sewer rate, or at least the base rate for those, we may have inverted the approach for the later usage, but 60% of our water users use the minimum. So water rates for most of the village and our external users have not gone up in quite some time.
Mayor, we've already decoupled the rates by putting a different schedule. That if the sewer rates are half the water rates, we didn't change them. And the reason we didn't change them a few years ago was because of the lack of reporting.
It's not decoupling when you say it's half of the rate, though. That's what I mean by decoupling.
No, I mean that we have the ability in the original code. It said sewer rates will be half water rates. Now there's a schedule for sewer rates, a schedule of water rates. They happen to be half of that because we didn't want to change rates because we thought we weren't getting enough reporting to look at the impact.
Let me restate the question. Are we willing to go at a different pace upward by water or for water and sewer, which is essentially decoupling the 50% approach that we've got going on currently in the fee schedule? So now that I've asked it in a way that doesn't bring that question up, what are your thoughts?
What do we need to do? I mean, sewer and water rates should be based on projection of what does it cost. We want to make sure that we're covering our operating costs, but what are our future capital costs?
And that was the question: inflation or inflation plus other things that we need to do down the line, and how do we start implementing it? So
Can I just bring up one point to that?
Go
Is
for it.
this USDA loan application that we're doing, 1.1 million, obviously needs to be paid back. Most of the equipment that we're going to be getting will be for water and sewer usage, not the whole portion, but that being said, this water and sewer fees, if it does increase, needs to be able to cover for that bond once we close on it.
So you should be able to tell us what that increase, what that debt service is.
Yep.
And then we need to look at that over the cost.
Yeah, what portion of that cost can be dedicated
those figures and then apply that, and we may not be able to, you know, comfortably raise, maybe it would take quite a big bump, and we may decide to do it gradually in order to get the rates up to where, frankly, is the plus.
A reminder that I think our metered usage is somewhere in the vicinity of $900,000 per year. Was that what we produced for water? So a 3% rate increase would be a $27,000 difference the first year. Not a whole lot, but obviously if you go 3% per year, it starts escalating and compounding on itself. But then that's keeping up with inflation and not necessarily getting you any capital jumps or head starts anywhere as well. And again, sewer is definitely lagging water, and that's one of my big concerns I want to flag here and underscore. We probably need to do something a little bit different with sewer than we're doing with water, ultimately, to make sure we don't bankrupt the sewer account or fund.
Well, I would say the sooner we do a sewer study, so we can assess what we actually gonna need to do and put off cost estimates, then we'd be able to factor in what we would need to raise the sewer.
Well, we got a $58 million plan in front of us over the next 15 years, so I guess we have some idea.
Well, I mean, as far as the phased approach, we might be able to address the immediate needs with, you know, a sewer study. If we did it sooner rather than later, and maybe say that's the first step in analyzing, okay, this is how much we have to increase sewer rates, assuming that we're going to have to replace that certain infrastructure in the near future, with the idea that maybe the steps need to go up more as we find out and do a more comprehensive study of the entire sewer.
I have asked Jeff to contact Eric Johnson from Labella tonight. I asked him, and Eric has just gone back from vacation, so the timing's right, to give us a letter explaining his thoughts on the I&I process in terms of sooner rather than later, that I believe that he believes in. We have a remarkable difference in opinion between our water feasibility study folks that are also dabbling in some of the sewer issues and questions along the way here about whether it's needed or not. In fact, the question was, why are they saying 2024 for some of the start of that work versus Labella saying we may have a more urgent need for it. So we're going to get some level of back and forth or information to give us opinions on why it is or is not an urgent need. And I know you were talking about using ARPA funds for that ultimately. And even having said that to Don, his thoughts were you're probably throwing ARPA funds at the wrong place if you're doing that on the immediate basis, but we'll see where we land with our consultants on that.
Mayor, I have number 4 to add. One of the things that we looked at pretty much in detail in the revenue committee was the structure of the rates. Because the average resident uses probably around 10,000 gallons a period. But the minimum is 30. So that's what you know, so the thought was, you know, could we change the structure somewhat to give a break to the homeowners? You know, so that they're not paying for water they're not using.
I think that we have now some ways of getting money from the state for those that can't afford what in our village is a $62 a period charge as a minimum. Currently we are way under in village and even out of village. Don Rhodes tells us all the time, Sean, I think you heard this too, that we're still way under when it comes to out of network as well, or out of village. Bob Kavanaugh, who deals with this every day, is waving his hand up in the back, so I'll let him talk. Bob, identify yourself and be loud.
Bob Kavanaugh, 20 Crestline Drive, Forest Park. For everybody who doesn't know that yet. Even if it's the minimum billing for 30,000 gallons and people are getting water from the village, it's 35 cents a day.
I'm not talking about the amount.
No, you're talking about lowering and getting rid of the minimum standard. The minimum standard gives us a base to operate with. It's not a big generous base. We're not ripping the people off. And the rates that are in there right now, I developed using data for the cost of producing it with some money to go ahead and address issues that came up. Right now, because we took it out of the local law and put it into a rate schedule, you people are just dancing around. Well, we can raise it this much, we can raise it this much. Tell me what you're gonna do with it. Last meeting, I believe Julia said, well, if you take the money and actually dedicate it to water like they should, you're gonna have to raise taxes. So there's an offset on that, if you're not just, you're not even including this at all. So you need to get your priorities straight as far as what are we gonna do with them all? And there's already excess money being generated in the water fund, well over what it costs to operate. 900,000 will certainly cover the water with some money to spare, but you're paving streets with it, or you're making crosswalks, or you're doing some other silly thing. If you haven't got a basis for your, for your assumptions, then start over and figure out where you're going with it first. But the rates here, yes, they're cheap. Hey, we live in Ballston spot. That's an advantage. But they won't be if you keep just playing with them and moving them whenever you want. And it's 30 cents a day for water. You figured it out. It's 50 cents a day for water and sewer in the village. How much can you get for 50 cents? We don't, and it's not and you've seen this display. I've done it before, but I didn't bring my water bottle tonight. That right there, one water bottle is twice as much as it costs for whatever you want to do with your water every day. So get a grip on how you're dealing with these rates.
That's exactly what we just said. We want to know how much revenue we need. And my point was not the amount, but how it's allocated.
I know what you're saying. And you want to get rid of the lower one and move it around. Leave us with a base. This is the same plan that you've had forever. And this is the same standard I've had. And when we went through this before and the revenue committee, and you can all remember this, or you can certainly look it up. 4 people, everybody in the revenue committee said, don't do this. Leave things where they are. No.
Not
And
this issue.
you didn't listen. Yes,
No,
it
that
is.
was a different issue.
That was
Bob.
flipping the rates.
No.
It
it's
was not
exactly
that,
the
no, the committee, as I remember, was in favor of increasing the sewer rate.
We're not talking about sewer.
Well,
We're talking about the water.
you were
Anybody here that was on
talking
that committee?
about the $50 charge for not reporting.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
That was the only time I disagreed with this.
No. It was voted on. 4 people voted to put that charge. Yeah, okay, that charge.
That was that charge. It had nothing to do with the water rates.
Well, still,
So just to
that was just a gouge on it.
just to interact or interject here, sorry for a second. In talking to Don Rhodes today before he goes on his vacation, the indication he made is he agrees that we do need to start targeting what our increases are related to some cost spending down the line. However, he said, in the meantime, you were foolish not to at least go up by inflation in this current period if you're running out of time at some point to make your increases. So I think what we need to walk away with here is some consensus that we're going to do something with these rates to start warning our villagers that we are going to start making moves like that. And if we have to go a little faster or do something with a little bit more rationale behind it for increases, we can begin to inform what that is along the way. But, I think the reason I'm bringing it up now, as I said, is to have enough time to get the information out there and also get the information we need to determine whether inflation is it for this go around or we need to do something greater than that. Peter, you were waving your hand as a member of that
I
revenue
just
committee.
wanted to clarify, Liz, you're somewhat right, but-
Peter Martin,
No, Peter Martin's right, just a report. I was on the committee with Liz. We, on our committee, if you were to change the base, we felt we would lose money in water revenue. Because as you say, you probably use 10,000, we use maybe 25,000. But if you lower it like you want to do, you want to just pay 10,000, then the younger families and the families with children would get hit hard. And the people outside the village will get hit even harder. So we all said, no, we don't want to do that. Our base it might not be fair to you, it might not be fair to me or to older people, maybe don't need much water, but it's so cheap. I don't think it should be changed. Our base should stay right where it is. Yes, you do need to raise the amount, but more than inflation if you have other issues. Now, does this include stormwater management at all? No, that's another big issue there.
Yeah,
I
don't know, does our sewer fund?
Is that,
So-
so that's our biggest issue in this village, is stormwater.
Oh, no, I
That
don't
is a
disagree,
gigantic
that's big a problem.
Yeah,
Stor-
that's bigger than any.
Stormwater is within the sewer fund, as our treasurer is reminding us.
Yeah.
So
That's the reason why we're seeping out faster
And,
also.
and that affects 3/4 of our village right now, what's happening with our stormwater. And if you went to, you went to comprehensive plan, that is more important than anything right now. And you know what's happening across our country with flooding and stuff like that. We gotta address that, and we have to address that right away. But as far as the other thing is, I just kind of disagree a little bit with you. I'd rather pay more money ourselves and families with kids. I mean, they'll get hit hard, and the people outside our village will get hit hard with water bills.
I want to just give Ben an opportunity because his hand's not up, but just to make sure he has a chance to talk about this if he wants. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's perfectly reasonable to talk about raising rates according to inflation. I think beyond that would require some kind of study or analysis of what our equipment needs are. I think it does make sense to separate the conversation with water and sewer and talk about those separately and talk about sewer and stormwater first. So I'm open to the points you're making makes sense in terms of what we need to think more about.
And like I said, this was not meant to be a final decision item tonight. This is meant to be we have to start the conversation to get this out there and to begin working on what we want to work on with respect to the information that might make sense in what we choose to do with the way we raise the rates of both. So
I do think it is wise we address inflation because the workshops, when you were discussing energy costs alone, just shot up. It was shocking. So I mean, we
Water
really
is our
have,
biggest one.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
we use synergy.
was sticker shock for me at least, but certainly we should consider.
let's go to public comment on all village business numero uno. Out to public comment sessions. As you know, please limit to 3 minutes and main address. We won't start your timer until that point. And also, please speak loud and clear if you're not going to come up, especially Donna Martin. I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Donna Martin, 25th Street Court. I just kind of cringe every time I hear that word study. I think we've been there, done that in all different manners, and it always means money spent. I think, like Pete said, our storm, water management, in our neighborhood, we have an issue. It floods and I think just Jeff alone, if you spoke to our DPW, they have a really good grip of what the sewer issues are. The most areas that need it the most, I know down Chester Street, you speak to residents and just start asking people, I just hate to see another study when we probably know very well what our biggest issues are already.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else in the audience? By the way, anybody on Zoom, now's the time to raise your hand on Zoom and we'll get to you after we're done with the audience present. Age before beauty, I don't know. Gina?
Qualified for captain.
Okay,
Gina Barozzi, 10 Old Glory Lane.
I'll be your volunteer.
Great. Quick question for Julia. When we flipped the rates for minimum users versus high users, did that affect our intake of money?
I don't know what you mean by intake of money. How did that affect that?
Revenue, water
Oh,
revenue.
revenue,
Yeah.
it increased the revenue.
It does. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's that. Next, over the years, I've seen everything that makes our village special dwindle. Be it events, be it our police department, be it anything that makes our village special. Tonight, we're faced with two things on the agenda. Events and you brought up earlier that you're gonna address later, Mayor, lack of police department, lack of police officers. We're fighting like hell to bring back the events. And we're asking for the board to cooperate with us, to keep that sense of community that we're trying to create with them. We need money to do that, so please consider helping us make the birdhouse program and make the Christmas program come back to the village. These are beloved events. People are willing to work on them, but we need your help. As far as the police department.
1 minute.
Okay, quickly. I have a bunch of seniors on the Hill that love our police department because they know when they pick up that phone, they're gonna get an officer in the driveway within 2 minutes. But when you're putting our officers at risk, they're not covering shifts. We're gonna have one officer on duty. Would you want to go to a domestic scene alone if you were an officer? Or do you want backup? We need to support our police department. And if we need to bring back a couple of these positions that we've gotten rid of for the sake of the dollar, we need to reconsider this. We need to have our police protected so they can protect us. Thank you.
Anna,
And Stanko, 32 Peck Street. I would just like to follow up on what Gina said about the program.
good and loud for the microphone.
The Swimming Under the Stars, I have gone every year since that's been an event. I do believe that there were more people at this event than I've ever seen. It was packed. You guys know, the ones that, the trustees that were there. The great family event. Everybody is so excited to get back out and socialize and get back out there and just enjoy each other's company. It was a great event, and I truly hope that that we can keep up with the birdhouses and the banners and all these other projects. We have a lot of people that are willing to volunteer and help with these projects. I believe they had 165 t-shirts, and those only went to kids, and those were gone well before my grandson even got there. The line was all the way to the back of the parking lot, so that tells you how much people enjoy these village events. So please consider that when you're going to vote on that. We really do need to keep these programs going. I think everybody's in agreement on that. Thank you.
Billy? Good and loud also. I know you can be a little soft spoken.
Oh, no. Ellie Dillon, 116 Malta Avenue. I want to address the birdhouses too. I love the birdhouse project. I loved it the first year. I loved it the second year. And after that, it became more of a little bit of a mass production. Get them all out there and get them up and not follow them. I would love to see this program come back, but not every year. Make it the village anticipate this type of festival and look forward to it. Reduce the number of birdhouses and make them a theme and make it a real event that everyone will look forward to. And I also think we should wait for the funding to be in place, which will grants before the village commits to this. I'm all for it. And I know with the museum, we had to wait for our funding before we could commit to our next project. And I think that's what would be smart to do. Thank you.
Mark was next.
Mark Fleck, 10 Thompson Street. And I don't think anyone disagrees that the birdhouse project or the banner project or the Christmas project are really great for our community. One reason why it's a quality, and I totally disagree with you, is we extended the program in the last one, the fourth edition of it, to a lot of the special needs children, which tend to do very simple things.
Oh, I understand that.
You know, and so every child is special and every child's creation is special. We can't wait to the funding is available. Because the funding, it doesn't work that way. To get grants, you have to show a record of history. You know, record a record that you're doing it consistently. The other thing is our main donor, Curtis Lumber, wants to see this come back yearly because it is in line with their objective to promote these skills. in that vein, we're going to extend it the way it's going to be done a little bit. We're going to be sending out kits so that people can put it together themselves. That we're going to do a lot of things a little bit differently to support the thing, to support the children and the community that's going on. But we can't without the village funding. Wood has gone up 30%, excuse me, 50% since last year, and we've gone from 75 the first year to 600 the last year. Last year we didn't do it because, quite honestly, the board only allotted $1,000 for the program. What then happens is I took money out of my own pocket to fund this program in the village, which included all the banners, programs, all the programs that are involved. That's not a sustainable system either.
20 seconds.
So the budgets that you come up with, I sent you guys out budgets Friday and Saturday. Those are realistic budgets of what these programs are going to cost. The nonprofit cannot come up with the balance of what you guys are offering, which I appreciate, but it can't. And it's putting the projects in jeopardy. The projects have to start, and I know we think the birdhouse program is in 6 months. It starts in September. Same with Christmas starts next week. Actually, it starts this week. So.
Thank you. Kamran?
Just following up on
Name
that.
and address.
Sorry, around Carolina, 86 South Street. I think the birdhouse program is a lovely program. I think they look great. It's interesting to the community. I was a little shocked to see $36,000.
Kamran.
Sorry. I think it was a surprising amount, and I'm sure it's justified. I'm sure I know Mark volunteers for everything I'm I'm sure his time is valuable. But I would be really interested to hear more about what that $10,000 goes to actually means when we're looking at lines for labor and storage. I think when we're looking at the next motion, the banners, 2,500 for putting up for printing them seems realistic. Just surprised to see that 10,000. I'm not really sure how that builds up. We can hear more about that. Just separately, I just want to say I was happy to hear about the skate park. I thought that had been long abandoned personally on way too long coordinated for skateboarding myself. But I see a huge increase in kids around my neighborhood skateboarding down our streets. And I think it would be great to see that come back. And just on the studies, I think I really get frustrated hearing so much pushback on studies when I think we really need to carefully consider what we do before we do it, so that we don't do anything that undermines what we're trying to do, or what we do when we're actually taking it. It's in the announcements.
Yeah, it's listed as $10,000 in that budget. It's actually 5,000 though, and I'll explain that once we get to the motion itself, I guess. So that it's in the agenda. It's in the agenda.
Attachments include the.
It's a PDF with the agenda. Christine.
Steve Fitzpatrick's 31 Chapman Street. I also want to comment about the birdhouse project and budget, which I think the birdhouse project is wonderful. I think it's very distinctive, and I think people get a lot out of doing it and a lot out of seeing it. However, I think you might want to reconsider doing 1,000. Let me tell you what happened last year. What happened, I think, for last time this was done, we had something like 400 or 500 birdhouses in this room. At the end of the day, after they were taken down, they were around the walls 3 feet. Okay, which we made an effort. The library got the donations. The library made an effort to reach out to people to get them to come and pick up their product, and a lot of people didn't. So we had 3 rows deep of birdhouses here that ended up being, well, DPW made them go away. So it was wasteful. It was, I think, somewhat wasteful. So I think that maybe we want to rethink about how many of them we do. Also, the other thing is, with a $36,000 budget, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, that I somehow, according to your purchasing policy, since you're hiring somebody and paying labor costs and hiring a not-for-profit, which I assume is, I don't know, but I assume it's Mark's not-for-profit, which is fine, that you have to do in accordance with your purchasing process, given that amount, it seems to me that some other people might need to bid on this. And the last thing that I saw, which was somewhat of a surprise, is that it says in the motion that the birdhouses will be the property of ASK after the event is completed. So that solves the problem of what to do with them, okay? But it also is public money that has been financed all of this. And I don't know that it's appropriate that public money is used to then give the product to a private entity, even if it's a not-for-profit. So those are just the issues that I raised. I think that it is, however, I hope that it goes forward because I think it's a really, really excellent program. And the other thing is I'd like to compliment you. You're dealing with a lot of thorny issues tonight. Very well done. I'm sorry to give you my back. It was very well done. All of these things need to be talked about. You know, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. So congratulations to you on how you handled it, discussed it all, and I'm sure we'll solve the problem at the end of the day. Thank you.
2 minutes, 58 seconds. You got this down. Not that I was going to gal me anyway, Christine, but I was just kind of joking about it. Katie, would you like to talk?
Hi.
Good and loud. Identify yourself, address.
Catherine Tiedemann, 22 East North. Real quick, I'm going to say, Sean, I really appreciate your expertise on the stop sign. Years now, it's better or safer. In regards to studies on the water, I think that would qualify us for more grants later on down the lines. Wouldn't necessarily be a waste of money, especially if your stormwater is tied in with your sewer. When you apply for much more global climate change grants. Last, everybody is very excited for the House project. And there are a couple emails back and forth between Frank, myself, and Mark about whether the art committee supports the funding, and we're just completely separate from that. And I wanted to clarify that before you all.
Well, I do want to say this, Katie, and generally, I would ask any committee that's handling an issue as a kind of prior committee to our board ultimately, because everything would go from Park and Tree to us or from Arts Committee to us, et cetera, that if it's not technically funded from your budget, then it helps us to understand if it's legitimate in terms of the funding level when it comes from your committee, or what you think that the funding should or shouldn't come from if it is within, let's say, your budget per se. I think everybody is going to sit here and say the birdhouse project is tremendous, and yet it's a question of funding ultimately. And I think it would really help us to pre-vet that question, or even call in your liaisons to sort of have the discussion. And I know we've had kind of a split liaison situation for Arts, out of respect for availability at this point, but just to have a conversation so that maybe you can give us a little bit more guidance in those situations. I think that would be appreciated to get us around some of the thorniness of these things, but we'll handle it at this point. But
Yes.
this is a general statement to any board that serves as kind of a board before us in that situation. Then Ray's kind of looking at me like, really, back there is Park and Tree back there, so.
Mayor, if you will permit me.
Absolutely.
She couldn't, her children were kind of having meltdown. She wanted to speak and she texted me. If you don't mind,
Sure.
if I read her.
Go right ahead.
Her comment. This is from Natalia Martinez at 9 Pleasant Run. She's the owner of Play Hollow, which is a great store for children. Anyway, she wanted to express her support for the arts program through the years in the village. After the last 2 years, there's been a vibrant energy of new businesses and residents who want to invest their time and love into the village. By helping nurture these communities and providing them with financial assistance to make these projects happen, it will yield many, many returns, not only financially by bringing people into the village and spending, but have our own community engaged and feel pride in making it their own. I know she's working with Mark on the Christmas portion, Christmas proposal. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Can we address some of the issues now, or should we wait for the motion? Because I
have something to say.
oh, sure, sorry, I didn't see.
What I would appreciate though overall is I'm probably gonna move this motion up front just to be fresh at this point. Yeah, and the Christmas motion as well, out of respect. Mark will get an opportunity to speak more to the questions at that point. I think out of fairness here, limiting him to 3 minutes isn't appropriate, but he wanted to use his 3 minutes and he had that right too. And we'll go from there. However, this is the public's only opportunity to have this discussion with us. Mark will be the only one inside our discussion able to speak during that. Everybody good with that? If not, didn't matter because we're gonna do it anyway. Peter.
Pete Martin, 20 Chesterwood Court. The stormwater management and our sewer is the most important issue right now in our village. And sidewalks is right next to it, and I agree, everybody's big on sidewalks. But through our village right now, 3/4 of our residents are being affected by the stormwater. It's off the jet, it's a nightmare anytime we get a heavy rain, so really have to go after that. I want to thank everybody in this board. I'm not speaking as a planning board member, I'm speaking as myself. It was a great meeting. You guys, I've been you two, all you guys, we work together. And it brings me to my other point. I fear if we don't work together, keep working together and getting developers in here, our taxes are going to go sky high. You can see everything we want to do. I know, Sean, you don't believe so. Ben, you discussed with me, you think I'm wrong too. And I respect both your opinions, but I 100% disagree. We got to get people into our village. Let's get these sections built, whatever you think is going to work, whatever is right. We get more revenue so we can do everything that we want to do. It's really, really important that we keep working together and we're cohesive, that we're all getting along. The word will get out and people will come to our village and want to do something with this village. But you guys were great. The last meeting, I thought it was the best meeting in many, many years. The last 2 or 3 years, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Ray was next. Bob, but you were first, so.
Sorry, Mark.
There was talk.
Name and address.
Oh, Ray Allen, 16 Newport Avenue. There was talk earlier about the great job the firefighters do. And they all know I love when they come and sit on my porch and we talk. Have a great time. And I wait on them. During this 90-degree heat response to anything, not just fires. These guys were out for those lines down that the builders decided they didn't like them there up on Church Avenue, and they took them down. They had to be out there during that. They're out there all kinds of things. 90-degree heat automatically in this county gives a response to the EMS agencies to respond. Regardless of what the call is, these guys are out there in unbelievable conditions, and I've worn that gear. I don't like that gear. That's why I went into EMS. It's hot, it's nasty, and it's hard. And I compliment you guys. You know I love you all. I actually go down to Kelly Park a couple times a week. And you know what I do down there? I talk to the people that are there. Because I want to see what could we do to make this park better for you. 3 times in the last 2 weeks, the comment has been skate park. Okay, and that was, just tell me, what could we do better? 2 times, dog park. I mentioned it. They said, what dog park? And we were in the parking lot looking that direction. We got to do something about that. People, and I'll include myself, can't take a dog down there. They don't even know it's there. So in the skate park, we had one there. The village obviously needs something somewhere. And I mentioned there was one at BACC at one point, and they go, "Where's that?" We got to get this word out to folks. Sidewalks.
I noticed you talked about ADA compliant, all right? I would love to be able to go from my house up South Street without going in the road. I can't. Somebody coming down from the other end, but the Maple Avenue end of South Street on the south side, if they come down there, they get to Middlebrook Avenue where I live, and there's a drop off.
It's the highest curb juncture I've actually ever seen, to be honest with you.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm not making this up. I'm gonna take a picture, but everybody knows it anyway. And it's really disturbing because if I want to go up South Street to anywhere and I'm in my chair, I have to go up to the first driveway to get in and get up that street. And it's a beautiful sidewalk the rest of the way. But those ends really need to be fixed. They need to be ADA compliant. That's one intersection that's in my neighborhood.
30
and
seconds.
lastly,
30 seconds, right?
Lastly, I can do this in 30 seconds. Most people here know that I'm a Rotarian. And Rotary, one of Rotary's chief projects in this lifetime is to get rid of polio. We had it down to 4 cases last year in the world. Well, guess what happened this year? New York State's got a case of polio. New York State has a case of polio. Talk to your families that are not vaccinating, and this was in a non-vaccine community that this happened. Please, it's something we're trying to get rid of. We're down to 4. Now it's back in the United States.
Ray, up your alley, I got a note during the meeting from Paul Brisson, who I've talked to in the past, and he wrote, Lisa and I took the kids down to Kelly Park the other night and wanted to say thank you for the repairs which were made to the area. While we were there, several other families commented on it as well. He wants to talk with his Masonic Lodge, Franklin number 22, on helping with some of these areas in the future. And appreciates the efforts we're making. So
You can give them my number.
absolutely. Bob?
Bush, Community Church Avenue, Julia. Was there a allocation of funds for a newsletter?
Yes, there was. Just at the most recent, or one of the latest budget workshops, a few months back, there was an allocation, or maybe it wasn't a budget workshop, but there was an allocation for newsletters. Yeah.
It was a future workshop.
Something,
Yeah.
one of the workshops, yeah.
All right, well, last week I got my water bill, and I'm never excited about getting bills that I haven't paid. I don't know why you guys might hate those. And I'm got excited, thinking I'm gonna get a newsletter to know about what's going on in the village. Lo and behold, I look open the bill and I got the bill, of course, and a survey. Survey for the steering committee, which you all, I'm not making these, well, I knew about that. But I got no newsletter. You know, and I talked to a couple of other neighbors, they didn't get a newsletter either. And they're asking why we have money allocated for it, if it's not gonna be utilized. So if you're not gonna utilize the money I get, is what I'm saying, then give it to the Boardhouse Committee or some other entity that can use it, or give the public a newsletter. So I guess.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else in the room? Bob,
Just real quick,
name and address just for
Bob Kavanaugh, 20 Crestline Drive.
Forest Park.
There you go. All right.
Where is that?
We had a great event. It's not the north end, Ellie, you know, it's somewhere else in the village. Ask around. There was a lot of comments here tonight, or a number of comments about how good swimming under the stars was. Great facility. The funds that needed to be put into it have been moved around, tabled, kicked around and everything. I'd like to say that, you know, usually the way it's been going the last 2 or 3 years, they close the pool and 2 days later, the winter covers on it. So if you want real numbers to look at for budget season this time, get a look at it before they put the cover on it. And somebody come down and do an inspection on it.
You're talking about the pool floor, just be, because it's not, for people that don't know, you're talking about the need for a pool floor replacement possibly or resurface, correct?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a discussion 5 years ago.
Well, the Tedisco grant.
Yeah, it's been kicked around, it's been turned into everything else, and it wasn't enough. So get real numbers and try again.
Okay. Bob, thank you. Anybody else in the room? Anybody on Zoom? Last chance before we go into motion practice here. What's
Are-
motion? Did I just say
Hi.
motion?
You did, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Ben?
But just, my family gave me 2 hours for this meeting. We're on vacation and we're not even in our house because of the internet. Are we going to go to the birdhouse thing right now?
That was
Otherwise-
the game plan. Yep.
All right. All right, give me 5 minutes. Thank you.
This motion is going to have to be reworded. I'm going to state it as it's written, and then we can work on wording if need be. Here we go. Can I get a motion that Mark Black and a nonprofit company, Arts and Sciences Creating Community Incorporated, or ASK, be retained to organize, design, and create logistics for the 5th annual Ballston Spa Birdhouse Program on village property for the sum of $5,000, acknowledged to be 1/2 of the municipal contribution needed for the program. The program will be installed on village property, including the Victorian lamppost, Wiswall Park, Old Iron Springs Park, and the Tedisco Trail. ASK will work to fundraise for the balance of the program as laid out in the tentative budget provided. Additionally, the Village of Ballston Spa will co-sponsor a $5,000 Saratoga Arts Community Arts Grant. The mayor shall hereby be authorized to execute any agreements and/or submissions related to the Saratoga Arts Grant. For the purpose of clarity, the village will be responsible for the insurance for this event, and the birdhouses will be the property of ASK after the event is completed. There's a layout of where the funds would come from for this in the next motion. Can I get that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Fandesa. The mayor will second it and shouldn't have had to. Shame on you. Shame on you. Under the circumstances, I shouldn't have to second a motion like this. If you had an issue with the dollar amount, we could have worked through it in this. You could have still voted it down with your majority, and you know it. I think that was just starting on the wrong foot on something that should be the right foot all the way. We are in the motion at this point. It is seconded. Mark had wanted some opportunities to answer some of the things that were stated by the folks out here. Let's give him the opportunity at this point.
I have one question.
Let's give him the opportunity to talk first because
No, I don't want to go first. I just wanted to know why the budget didn't include the time BPW spent on the fire.
Because it's during the day, and so I thought the DPW hours only have to be accounted for if it goes into overtime.
additional expenditure for the
But-
village.
If they're working on the project, they're not working.
It's not additional hours at that point.
No, I'm saying if they're not working on, if they're working on your project and it's a significant number of hours, they're not doing the work that they have to. So in a way, it's a cost. That's my.
It's the village project, not. the waste. But I mean, I
Either
thought-
way, the policy is on additional expenditure not within the budget. That's why we're covering those for overtime, et cetera. We're not doing opportunity costs here. We're doing actual costs. Okay, you have a bunch of things that were brought up during public comment that you may want to respond to. I'll give you the opportunity.
Yes, so.
Why don't you come forward, Mark?
If one thing was stated that with the birdhouses, why are the birdhouses going to be the property of ASK? Because the village, if the village was to give us the full amount, then they would be the property of the village. The village, if ASK is trying to raise their own money, then why is ASK why is the nonprofit giving them to the village? So what we're asking for is if the village wants to pay for the full amount, then they can have the birdhouses. But if they're not willing to pay the full amount, why is the nonprofit donating to the village? Regarding the reuse of the birdhouses, the year that I sold the birdhouses, we sold every one. And we gave a great deal of money to put it back into our account, which we used for the next year. The fault of the library to not sell them all is not my fault, Where that money went should have gone back into the birdhouse fund as it was told to the people that did the work. Why it was not done was a fault of the board at the time and the mayor at the time. That's a misuse of funds as far as I'm concerned. And to even go further, because this is a point of contention, in that I paid for personally those birdhouses, both wood and labor, that the village did not sell my wares without giving me, without recompensating me, is a point of contention, and why there's a bit of distrust on my part. So I don't feel that I was being treated fairly. So I'm not willing to work. I required that provision put in that in the motion. I've given the trustees and the mayor the requested budget. They're very realistic numbers. These programs take a huge amount of time. I know it looks simple, a bunch of birdhouses on the wall. These programs take a huge amount of time to organize, build. If anybody wants to build 1,000 birdhouses, go for it.
Mark, address us.
I'm sorry?
Address us.
Oh, where's the camera?
No, you addressed the board.
You addressed the board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You can go sideways to be in camera,
Okay.
but just kind of talk to us.
Okay, so what was I saying? Oh, 1,000 birdhouses. Making 1,000 birdhouses take a lot of time. We make 1,000 birdhouses. We're making 1,000 birdhouses this year because last time we had 600 birdhouses and I had to turn people away. I'm not willing to turn any child away. If anybody wants to tell a little kid, no, you can't decorate a birdhouse, God will get you for that one. I'm sorry, I just can't do that. We do a lot of special needs kids, and there's a lot of them in this community. We do a lot of students. We do the students at the different height, the special needs kids at the schools with all our programs, as well as giving out to the community. People have come as far as Schenectady, Del Mar to pick up birdhouses last year. So there's a lot of need and a lot of desire, and it gives our village a lot of press, a lot of good press. And that's what we need in this village, not the bad press. We need the good press. In the budget is also the spectacular, which is what they're called, Peace and Wiswell Park. They draw a lot of people. It draws a lot of people to our village. I'm planning an even bigger one this year. Penelope will be back, the bird. She's been redecorated and she looks great. Bernadette saw her, so that's really planned. But again, material costs have gone up, and I have donated a lot of time to this village, and I love doing it. But there's a certain limit when there's just so much I can donate.
Yeah.
And I'm asking for labor costs now. And I put in labor costs that I feel are fair for the person of my skills, my level of involvement, and my abilities. I think to expect someone to work all year is unsustainable for this village, for this program, for these programs that we do. So my concern is to get these programs sustainable as a way of marketing this village and reaching out to the community outreach.
Can I say a few words, because my time is extremely limited? Thanks, Mark. First of all, I want to thank you for all your volunteer work on behalf of the village, and the birdhouses have been an excellent addition, and everyone loves them. I am concerned about the larger scale and the cost. The budget you sent us was about $46,000, 21,000 labor and 25,000 supplies, and that's probably what you need for 1,000 birdhouses if you're going to get paid, and your labor costs are perfectly fair. Just a matter of what as a village can we afford, and how much should we be putting towards a birdhouse project. if we have the money, I'm fine with the 5,000. And I'm fine with sponsoring, since the Arts Committee also supports it with going to the Saratoga Arts and getting that grant. What I don't understand is how for that 5,000, I'm not willing to put in the 46,000. For the 5,000, how does that change your project? Can you do the project at 5? Like, what does it even make sense to ask for 5,000? Does this motion make sense? Is because your budget's 46. How does it work? Yeah.
Sure. Ben and Liz, you were present when I spoke for the town of Ballston's board, as I saw the participant list while I was on the participant side of it. And you know darn well the answer to the question is that we are attempting to, and I said this actually in mayor comments or mayor announcements at the last regular meeting, that we're attempting to get $2,500 from the town of Ballston and $2,500 from the town of Milton. Mark gave a presentation to the town of Ballston Town Board during their agenda meeting about a week and a half ago or thereabouts. And it was discussed. Chuck Curtis was very much behind it, especially with the assembly portion of the program that Mark discussed. Joe Whalen got very behind it as deputy supervisor to kind of lead the way there for Eric, who wasn't as familiar with the project, to talk about the value of having Curtis Lumber behind this project, and Doug Ford ultimately and his crew over there. So and you were at the meeting where we discussed the fact that we have tried to knock down the village share here from $10,000 to $5,000 out of respect for the idea that $10,000 is a huge ask for the village, and doing it in a manageable way. Scott Ostrander has given me an indication that he's open to it as well. And so we're trying to piece together the $10,000. If you authorize $5,000, you authorize $5,000. You're not authorizing $46,000 or anything close to it under the circumstances. But we have to trust here that there's a budget that's been set and the allocations are what are being requested from each component. And part of the 46,000 includes donations from Curtis Lumber, I believe. Is that not correct?
Yes.
All right, well, I'm comfortable with 5,000. I have to say, Mr. Mayor, that I thought it was very inappropriate for you to be going to the town of Ballston, showing them on the
Say it
screen.
next time when I tell you in mayor announcements, you tell me everything else.
I'm telling you now that it was inappropriate to present at the town of Ballston a budget that includes $10,000 from the village that you have no authority to present. You also had no authority to request $2,500 from the town of Ballston. I believe you need to have the authority of this board behind you before you approach other towns for money. And if you're going to present a budget, that budget should be voted on. If that were the case, we wouldn't have a pool or a library, Ben. Before you go to another town, you should have the authority behind you of this board. It's very similar, only worse than what happened with the county fairgrounds, where you accused us of not having board authority, even though all we were asking for was an opinion. We weren't asking for money. We didn't present a budget that we were going to pay them. We just wanted their opinion. Apparently that was too much for you. That was exceeding our board authority. Here you are asking other towns for money and also presenting a budget. You had no authority for that.
Ben, you're out of, he's also out of order at this point, because a reminder, Ben, I brought it up in mayor announcements. You all heard it in mayor announcements in this room. You said nothing.
You said it in passing and there was no vote on it. There was no motion on it.
Okay, so if you had a problem with it, you email 50 different ways to Saturday. Tell me you got a problem with it.
It happened the next day.
I told you immediately when you told us finally you went to the fair, I had an issue with it, that it exceeded authority. Also, again, we wouldn't have a pool, we wouldn't have a library if we didn't do it in the manner I did it in. And you actually were texting with Eric during the meeting, and I'll tell you how I know this. I got brought into the meeting as a participant and then ejected out of the meeting because he was texting with you, or you were texting with him about the fact, oh, you haven't gotten authority or you haven't given your money yet as a village. As I said to him, Eric, This is how we handle the pool. This is how we handle the library. We see what the towns are going to give and we fill in the gaps for the money normally to the degree we're willing to. If we're not willing to give the
You
money.
need to
somebody has
bring that to the
follow.
board. You need to bring that to the board and have us.
It's not two
officially
sets of
approve.
rules. You are signing a contract essentially, or doing contractual type of work with real estate deals, Liz. This is asking a municipality if they're willing to give $2,500 towards a program. There's a huge difference.
You should have had this motion before you went to the town board. Anyway, that's my opinion. All right, I think there's hypocrisy involved, but that's just my opinion. You can disagree, but anyway, I'm comfortable with 5,000. I'm interested in knowing what the plan would be if you do not get the 46, and are you still willing to do it if you're not fully paid to do this project?
Mark?
What?
Well,
Sorry.
if I might say, it's not 5,000 from the village, it's 10, because he said
No.
half, but excuse me, let me
15.
finish.
Yes, no, I
And
agree.
then another 5 if the grant doesn't come through. So he's actually asking for a commitment of $15,000.
No, he's asking for $5,000 from the village, $5,000 in an arts grant for your sponsor, and $5,000 total from the town of Ballston and the town of Milton. The motion is written in a way where we're saying the funds for this motion and the next motion will come from these areas for $7,500 total. Nobody's authorizing 15,000 or 10,000. You're authorizing $5,000. As I said, the legwork here was to figure out what the towns are willing to give toward it so that the authorization wasn't $10,000 from the
If
village.
towns don't give 5,000, if the grant does not come through,
Then it's up to
Are
Mark
we-
to decide what he's gonna do.
are we obligated to provide
No.
any more?
You can't authorize something. We are authorizing $5,000. Liz, you've been here for 3.5 years. $5,000.
Well, the way it's written sounds like.
No, it's not.
We're committing to the other half.
What's the other 5 that's in the motion? That's from the
Let
town
me
board?
read it again, because I think this is pretty much as bland and basic as you can get. Now, the one thing that has to change is that technically it's a 1099 scenario with the not-for-profit. So we have to do a contract in that realm ultimately, and it does not trip the procurement policy in the way that was discussed earlier as checked by our attorney. So Christine, just to rest your nerves on that one. Motion that Mark Black and the not-for-profit company ask be retained to organize, design, and create logistics for the birdhouse program on village property for the sum of $5,000.
Period.
Acknowledged to be 1/2 of the municipal contribution needed for the program.
So what's the other half of, is that our municipal or some other municipal?
It
Yeah,
is-
see, that's
It is-
unclear.
Are you saying that at the next meeting, you're gonna ask for another 5,000, or what does that
No,
mean?
it's stating essentially what was inside the parenthetical is referring to the fact that there's $2,500 being asked for from two other
That's not-
towns. I just didn't state it specifically.
Okay,
who we're
all
asking
right.
what.
Oh, that's not clear. I
That
think
wasn't clear.
people
right.
request, I want 5,000.
It's a little more than simple here, I
No,
tell you.
that's it. 5,000 is what he's asking for. Just have the motion say that's what we're going to grant.
Okay, but we also have to give him the installation of the property. We also have to give him the grant authorization or working with the submission on it. And
But not
the
guaranteed.
ownership and the insurance issues. They're all
I think,
issues.
I mean, the ownership is one thing, but, the thing is, this project wasn't in the budget. And our responsibility is to manage the budget. We've already added $10,000 to the celebrations budget to do the family fun day. And we did.
8,500.
500.
Well, Julia's numbers say 10,000.
Because SAS gave money into the budget ultimately for the overage.
We had to match the
Okay,
1,500.
all right, so 8,500, but that's an increase. The original budget was 18,200 for events. I think if, I'm not comfortable with taking money out of other accounts, out of other budget levels, particularly at this point in the year, before we know, what the end is. I mean, we have the programs, other programs that I think you need to take the money out of other programs.
Give us your newsletter budget that you're not using.
That's not a celebration. That is a marketing dollars that,
This is marketing.
Transfer.
well,
This is a marketing tool. This is not a sell.
We've
This
got-
is just as much marketing.
we've got
as it is.
still the falling leaves, the winter fest,
Folks,
the holiday parade. The holiday decorations is already budgeted for 1,000, so that covers your second point. And then Memorial Day, 4,000. Now, out of that, you want to take 5,000, but I'm not comfortable with transferring from other accounts to, I mean, the birdhouse project is great, but it's not an essential function of the village government.
The marketing of the village is an essential part of the village government.
Yeah.
It is.
It's art.
No.
It's not market,
It
markets
is-
ask,
No.
not the village.
I would really watch the tightrope you're watching on there. Come on, I gotta be honest with you. That's not a small.
Guys, my ride's walking out the door. I'm okay with 5,000 if we have the funds, and if you guys can figure out if we have the funds. Obviously I can't vote because I'm about to leave, but that's my opinion. So I'm sorry I gotta go, but
I would like to change, I would like to amend the motion to read that the board authorizes the mayor to sign off on an agreement with ask for services to be rendered at the end of it.
No, I mean, I'm comfortable paying for supplies, but not for labor, because,
Why?
because
Yeah,
we
why?
don't, there are, what about all the other
Bye,
volunteers?
everybody.
They're not coming here and saying, we want to be paid.
There's,
The people
Liz,
that
we're talking-
volunteer in the garden club,
how
in the
many-
Rotary, in the Lions, in the Elks Club. It, to benefit this village, to help market this village, BSBPA, except for the director, which they pay, not the village. It's all volunteers. And what about our firemen?
I
They,
agree.
they go into burning buildings, we don't pay them,
Mhm.
but for a birdhouse project, a nice project,
That takes 6 months to.
then it's not worth doing if
Oh,
it
okay.
takes too
Yeah.
much.
And there it is.
There it is.
It is too much effort.
It's too much effort.
I
Okay.
think it can still be done,
But
but I think it's, the scale is just blown out of proportion.
And we've gotten a lot of press for it. And that's what this
But
village needs.
again, we can get village press in other ways too.
Sure.
So, but how? I
Give us an
think,
example.
I think skating is back to a more,
You,
1,000 birdhouses.
yes, it's gonna be fabulous. It's gonna be incredible. We are going to be
So
on the news.
what's the age range of the kids who do it?
We do it from 3 years old to 99.
Okay, so,
Actually, I think over.
so it's not really a kids program.
No, it's not a kids program at all. It's everybody. We have a community, we have kids, we have, your neighbors do it, we have what the nursing home people, the veterans do it, the special needs people do it. We have adults with their kids do it. We have people creating parties around it. Like I said, people have come from Schenectady and Del Mar to be in part of this program. And when they come here, they stop and have lunch and they look at our stores. When Mayor Woolbright was on TV with Doug Ford, in three installments on Channel 10,
No, it was Channel 9.
Channel 9,
Spectrum.
that promotes the
Spectrum.
village. That's the press we want. It's a marketing tool. What do you want to market? The same old, come to our garden, our Wiswell Park, watch the flowers grow?
For 50 grand, I could buy a lot of stuff in the Times.
What can you do and promote what?
Promote the village, just put
Promote
advertisements.
what?
what about
What?
the
Yeah.
programs we already have? I mean, we have a whole range of programs. This is not the be all.
This
and end
adds it
all.
all. This is about adding to it, bringing it all together. People come,
I just
You know what we can
also,
do for less than 50 grand is a super study.
yeah,
Hold on. The
A real priority.
motion is $5,000. So let's focus on the 5,000.
for supplies and equipment.
Yeah, I'm fine with 5 grand. 'cause that's what
$5,000
we've
doesn't,
done.
but if you look at what I showed you, what I sent you, $5,000 doesn't even buy enough wood for the birdhouses.
Well, I think you need to scale back the number of birdhouses. That's the simple.
When you shrink a program, you might as well just, that says the program's ended. If you say, look, we've gone from 600 to 1,000, and come see our 1,000 birdhouses. There's a town in Georgia that just does scarecrows at dead town. And every year there's a truckloads of people just coming through that town to see scarecrows. That's what you want people to come to this village. You have to give them something to see.
Well, I appreciate it, but
Do we micromanage DPW and what streets they do to this degree? Because my God,
I mean,
what are we doing?
Well,
What?
the only thing that I'm willing to vote yes on is 5,000 commitment, which is 5 times larger than what you got last year.
No, last year we didn't do it because we didn't have any money.
Well, then you didn't do it. I mean, this is economic.
And how somehow the village.
Everybody.
Really?
Everybody, hold on. Everybody.
Yeah, it's done. Okay, so we're not, so
So you're not gonna do anything.
we don't have the money.
LSP.
With what money, Liz?
You raise the money, you have enough for profit.
I will say
How
this,
will
hold on,
the SBPA?
Liz, hold on, he's raising $31,000.
I will say this, it is becoming increasingly more difficult for organizations to raise money. The SPPA does a great job, but it is a struggle. And again, we are focusing on the motion here. I think everybody's tone on our board needs to calm down. Everybody's raising their voices. So, I mean.
All right,
Liz, we just raised
how much
$7,000 or $8,000.
do we have to get if we raise taxes? I mean, that's all the requests that everyone's talking about. Let's do more, let's do more. We're responsible for the village's finances. Nobody wants tax increases, but you want more and more.
You just took out of the general fund for your newsletter that you didn't do.
And we took out of the fund balance for family funding.
Yeah, right.
And how much is
So-
left in the fund
You
balance?
don't think community engagement?
I'd like to amend the motion. Will you accept? Motion that the Board of Trustees allocates $5,000 to Arts and Sciences Creating Community Incorporated, ask a not-for-profit to motion that the not-for-profit company Arts and Sciences Creating Community Incorporated ask be retained to organize, design, and create logistics for the 5th annual Ballston Spot Birdhouse Program on village property for the sum of $5,000. Well, I need this still. The program will be installed on village property, including Victorian lampposts, Woods Hall Park, Old Iron Spring Park, and the Disco Trail. Yeah. Additionally, the Village of Ballston Spa will co-sponsor a $5,000 Saratoga Community Arts Grant. Failure to secure the funds will not obligate the village to contribute another $5,000. The mayor shall hereby be authorized to execute any agreements and/or submissions related to the Saratoga Arts Grant. For the purpose of clarity, the village will be responsible for the insurance for this event, and the birdhouses will be the property of ASK after the event is completed.
No, do the birdhouses go to the children?
Also, the mayor shall be hereby authorized to execute a services contract with Arts and Sciences Creating Community Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $5,000.
One last
Do you,
question.
I accept. You accept the
I have
amended
a
motion.
question.
I will accept as the second, go ahead.
Question is, where are the funds coming from?
Oh, that is.
Would you like to explain that part?
No, I mean, I
What-
saw this part.
Well,
here.
you might want to understand why she picked these, because I didn't make these
What
up.
about transferring it from other events?
Why?
Because it's an event.
It's actually art.
Oh, we're not gonna take from other events, so that we're the
No,
village.
no, hold
You're
on,
gonna be the village.
hold on. Why unallocated insurance? Actually, I think I know the answer to that one. Judgments of claims and taxes on village.
Okay, unallocated insurance, that's a yearly lump sum payment that's made in the beginning of June. With that being said, even after we take $3,000 from it for this project, there is still going to be additional funds for insuring additional vehicles, may there be any during this fiscal year. For judgment and claims, we have judgment and claims, we budgeted, I think we just reduced it actually this year because we don't really have any, and And even in prior years, we didn't have judgment and claims. It's kind of there as a safe haven. That being said, if there is some sort of judgment and claim that happened, that's going to be an additional huge cost. There is always contingency because it's a one-time expense. Then taxes on village, we do have 38,000 in the general fund for taxes on village. Historically, it's only been about 25,000, so there's about $13,000 of wiggle room for the additional expenses or tax increases. So.
Are you willing to do the same, to put money in the park?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I mean, we're taking money out of accounts for this courthouse thing, but we need money, as Ray has said, to work on Kelly Park, and we need money.
No,
that has
don't pull me in.
No,
Do not pull me in.
you
Don't
just
mention my
said,
name.
you just said we needed to work on Kelly.
I think I just stated earlier tonight that I want to get a landscaping service twice a year to maintain Wiswell Park. Did I not, folks, or am I going crazy? So, yeah, yes, and yes, okay? There's, as I said earlier about the police situation, that we'll talk about in other business, I'm locating $15,000 to move around to help address a need ultimately. I get there are fluid parts of our budget to make these things happen ultimately. Yeah, do we want to spend to the zero mark? No, we don't, but we're also being cognizant of that fact. Sorry.
I'm just concerned, it's still early in the budget year and things happen. And I don't want to end up at the end, in a tough situation because we had an emergency and we moved everything around for.
Julie, are you worried?
I will just say well, based off of your point, if there is an emergency that comes up, we have contingency to pull from, and in the event that there is an additional emergency that exceeds the contingency budgeted, we do have fund balance. Whenever I make any sort of budget transfer for an unexpected expense, I try to take from the current budget before taking from our emergency area. So I do this pretty often. That's how I do my budget.
Further discussion?
Bernadette, does the Business and Professional Association, when they do an event, and they're a not-for-profit, do they provide their own insurance?
The skating rink we provide, I'll tell you that.
What's that?
The skating rink we provide.
Okay, but I mean, as a non-for-profit organization, most of the ones that apply provide their own insurance. So I'm kind of curious as to why Ask isn't providing their own insurance and the village's insurance.
We'd be happy to, and we'll just have the request. I mean, what can I say? It's on your property, you take ownership of it while, and then return it.
Yeah, but so do other people have events and they indemnify the village.
Then I will increase my request for funding.
Well, we said what
We're not
willing
gonna
to
pay
fund.
insurance for it.
Well,
I think
Yes,
he's
but-
saying he's not gonna pay our insurance for us.
No,
No,
we
no,
pay
what
our
I'm
own
saying
insurance.
is, my,
That is
No,
an
Christine.
accepted practice.
what I'm saying is, the budget I'm requesting, I sent you a request for a budget on Friday, as you asked. Now I will have to revise it based on your request and get back to you about what I am requesting from the village. Now, what you're willing to give me does not mean what I'm gonna do it for. I have to give you a new budget now based on a new request. Okay, and I'm happy to do that.
I'm just curious as to why every other not-for-profit that wants to do something in Village Boston has to indemnify the village, but this particular case, we're gonna indemnify you.
Because in past, it's been through the village this year, so we're in a learning process. So now we'll have to revise what I'm requesting to include that.
By actually taking away from the labor portion and putting it toward the material portion, you are making it a village event. And so the village actually should be paying the insurance under these circumstances.
I mean, if you guys could cover just.
You made it a village event. The village pays insurance for a village event on village property.
Well, this is now going to be an Ask event.
No,
No, it's there.
Why not?
We turned it around.
it's,
No. What?
Yes.
why
I think it
is
should
it-
be asked.
Why is it we're contracting with,
To a private entity, because if we're gonna pay later, you're either an employee or a contractor.
You're not paying labor. We
Only-
made this decision. We're not paying labor. That's what I'm saying. You flipped it.
okay,
That's why the insurance actually belongs in this spot now.
All right, if you pay the full amount, then it would be a contractor, but since you're not paying the full amount, I'm not a contractor.
You know, the amount is going toward
The amount is
materials
relevant.
is the
What?
answer.
well, then
That's why the
the
funds are
birdhouse is
dedicated.
built with that material, should go back to us, right? On that logic. No, really?
You know what?
So-
Seriously, you know, seriously.
The other question I have is about the arts grant. Is that for applying for a grant, the 5,000?
That's Saratoga Arts.
No, that's their grant amount that they'll get.
That's the grant amount, the maximum you can get.
Basically, we're saying we'll sign to back the fact that it's a project that we support, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, each organization can apply for a $5,000 community arts grant. The maximum you can apply for less, but you have to apply for $5,000.
Wouldn't it make
the most you
sense for us to apply for that grant and then
can.
it
We
would
have
wait?
we're gonna do other things with our 5,000.
Well,
Yes, we're actually gonna do a banner program with our 5,000 for the village.
Everything we do through Ask is to benefit the village.
So-
That's what you're not getting. Ask was created to benefit your village.
Right, so we're gonna do
and
another,
so are a lot of other not-for-profit organizations and they don't demand what you're demanding.
They don't put in the hours, the man hours that this group does.
Did
You have
we
no
ask
idea.
you to put in those hours?
oh my God.
Oh, she didn't.
I mean, you don't volunteer and then go complain about how many hours you volunteer.
Madam Clerk,
Call it.
please take a roll call vote.
No, please don't.
Please
No.
don't.
It's,
We're done.
we're no longer able to do it.
No,
It's
we're
not,
done. Thank
it's
you.
not a
Thank
possibility.
you, Mayor, for trying so hard. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Take the roll call.
If they would.
Excuse me, I'm taking a roll call. Trustee Van Nessa? Yeah. Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Corvall?
Yes, I'll put 5,000, that's it.
Mayor Rossi?
Yes.
Just so everyone knows, I have the new motion, so Terry, I can send it to you. Not-
Thank you so much.
And it's a not to exceed amount of 5,000 with a contract with your company, with the not-for-profit.
I know what's in there.
It's a contract with the company not to exceed $5,000.
When I talk, you listen.
First, you don't want me as your neighbor. Next, you don't listen to me. Okay.
Just saying.
You better repeat that.
We're in shock back here.
I know it.
Yeah, but repeat what you just said.
Yes.
For everyone in the room, everyone in Zoom land, the motion was amended. Would you like me to read what you folks voted on, or you want me just to send it to Terry? Okay, because it was what the mayor had indicated, I just cleaned it up a little bit. It is a not to exceed amount for $5,000 from those accounts that you put in with a contract, Mark, with a contract with your not-for-profit.
Yes.
Okay, authorizing the mayor to execute the document.
And the arts community grant. the
I will,
documents.
correct, and I will prepare the contract.
My lawyer will,
All good?
Frank will look it over.
I will not.
I'm sure on the record, you're saying Frank is not your lawyer
Of course.
Not for these issues, no.
or anything with respect to.
I do not represent past. Correct.
So, okay, all right. I'll send that to you.
What are we doing with the motion for the ornaments? Yeah, I thought so. Okay. We are going to not go down that line
So we're not dealing with that issue.
for tonight. I think we've done plenty for one night on that. Can I get a motion, the attached budget transfers be approved?
Can I just ask one clarifying question? If they decide not to do the program, then we don't The contract is. to do this.
That will be in the contract.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, it is solely for the spring.
I've asked for a motion.
Oh, I will make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa, trustee Raymond, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Guys, all in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. And a motion that Saratoga Hospital be granted permission to hold an employee picnic at the Saratoga County Fairgrounds on 8/20/22 from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Proof of insurance has been provided. I'll give it to trustee Raymond. I'll give it to trustee Formos a second. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Jared Ovitt and Zachary Fitzgerald be removed from the roles of Union Fire Company number 2 in the Ballston Spa Fire Department? Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Raymond, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Devin Rowan be added to the roles of the Union Fire Company number 2 in the Ballston Spa Fire Department?
I make the motion.
Trustee Cormos? Trustee Fandesa, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Eagle Mat Lee Fire Company number 1 be granted permission to hold a private party on 8/27/22 from noon to 4 p.m.?
I'll make them.
Trustee Raymond, trustee Fandesa, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to allow the Ballston Spa Central School District to close Malta Avenue between Pine and Chapman Streets on Wednesday, August 31st, 2022, from 2 p.m. until 6 p.m. for a welcome back block party. Trustee Fandesa, trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the retention of Bartlett, Pontiff, Stewart, and Rhodes, PC, to be the bond counsel for the village related to the $1.1 million USDA financing, the cost of $3,100 plus potential additional costs and fees outlined in the attached retention letter, and authorizing the mayor to execute same.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond. I'll give trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Next one's a repeat.
No, there was an
no.
updated agenda.
No, yeah,
Oh,
I was just gonna say, I thought that got fixed.
Yeah.
I'm holding off on this one. I'll skip it and come back in a second. Can I get a motion to authorize the DPW to spend up to $4,000 for the purposes of repainting existing crosswalks, painting new crosswalks where missing/feasible, and installing ADA pads where cement is currently missing in order to install new crosswalks in certain intersections. The area of focus for this authorization is the roadways from Malta Avenue School to High Boulevard, including but not limited to Chapman Street, Eastern Avenue, East High Street, Grove Street, Heritage Place, Columbia Avenue, High Boulevard, and Malta Avenue. Hold on, I'm gonna add here for a second, don't worry. DPW shall also work with the village offices staff to determine other crosswalks in other areas that may be repainted or added.
Yep.
Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. See, I do listen, okay? Give me that one. This is, welcome to our next minefield. Can I get a motion to authorize the mayor to submit an intent to apply form on or before Wednesday, August 10th, 2022 for the New York Forward Grant?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Raymond, discussion.
Discussion. I think you all received, did you not? You can pass these down. Yeah, sure. I looked over the proposal and I've gone through the complete application, and I believe we should modify the text part, and also the list of committee members was not included, which needs to be included before we vote on this.
You should not be including committee members. First off, you shouldn't be creating documents with my name on them without authorization. You
This
should
is
not be,
just a
you should,
draft.
right, you should not be putting committee members we haven't talked to yet onto a committee, because that's not fair to them or their email addresses,
Well-
et cetera. That's why we actually was left off. There's been discussion in the offices who to include. For instance, you didn't talk to Rory about this, Rory O'Connor is on this list. I was talking to him today and saw if he was interested in possibly being part of it. The answer was yes. So there you have a hit. But the rest of them, I can't say that about. And we had 2 days to sort of get to that point.
Well, then we might need to table this. to-
How are you gonna table it? It's due on
to
Wednesday.
do Vote over email once we see a complete document. My issue with what you wrote is that what you included was just repairs to Village Hall and to Wiswall.
That is not correct in least.
Well,
Let's
please explain.
read the entirety of what I wrote, and then I'll explain why it was written this way with staff assisting the entire way. And
Okay, what I saw on here was Village Hall, which needs repair, we know, and Wiswall Park.
the area of consideration includes the gateway to our downtown central business district, DCBD, our village offices building, which is in major need of facade and structural improvements, mainly vacant on upper floors. The area continues through Front Street, including almost entirely ground floor retail with residential above, limited to 4 stories, and includes Wiswall Park. Front Street leads to Route 50 buildings of similar characteristics, ending slightly past Malta Avenue. There are plans to repave Front Street and renovate sidewalks next year in 2023. And there is a need to renovate Wiswall Park and the village offices building in the near term, especially to upgrade / enhance our DCBD before the potential loss of our county seat status. Saratoga County is considering moving some or all of their operations in the village elsewhere. As such, we need to ensure our downtown is vibrant to attract new customers if the loss occurs. Now, the reason is description of downtown or focus area. In the section below, identify the downtown area being considered as the focus of an application and provide a brief description, including key characteristics, size, boundaries, description of area served by the downtown, and any existing revitalization efforts in or near the downtown. The description should not exceed 150 words. New York Forward is intended for small communities with tight downtown areas to revitalize those downtown areas. You're asking us to basically put Ricketts, Angelica, the infirmary, et cetera, which have already received preferential treatment under the Brownfield Opportunity Grant, into the exclusive rights for this money. I'm the one that always takes it on the chin for being so developer friendly. I don't know why we would be offering money that's going to help our small businesses in this community by revitalizing that area that I basically just read off, that we mapped out as well, kind of a dog leg from Front Street down Route 50, which is really our downtown business district. Why we would rob them of the opportunity, which I think we would get served a better chance at winning this based on all the information I've read. And I know, Bernadette, you sat through some materials on this as well. Why we would go to buildings outside that central business zone that are already getting preferential treatment anyway. If you wanted to add to any of that.
You know, at least what I perceived when I listened to
Loud.
when I listened in on the information session, it did seem like they had a preference for the focus sort of projects, and you know, our downtown certainly needs the attention. As it is proposed and as we made the motion, that is what I'm interested in.
Well, the thing is, this letter is to get one-on-one technical assistance and for them to look at your community. And I did ask the deputy, what's her name? What's the title here? Deputy Secretary of State. Is that the session you listened to, the NICOM session?
I don't remember this.
Well, anyways, that was one with the people and the representative from PACE, who's the consultant, who's going to be helping these projects. And I asked the question, I said, we're a community that is about to undertake a BOA grant. You know, it's about to start that. And how would that work with New York Forward? She kind of looked and said, basically the timing is very different. And her suggestion was that probably they wouldn't, you know, grant this grant. If we're doing that, it would be very difficult for a community to handle both at the same time. And they do overlap in what they do because it goes through the whole planning process.
But the BOA zone and the zone that we basically outlined here are not really an overlap zone of much entirety, if at all.
Well, they do overlap because the BOA zone includes all of downtown.
It's $170,000 grant. It's not going to do much. I mean, you sat there today. You sat there today on an email to the infirmary real estate
Would you
broker.
stop changing the
No,
the
I mean,
topic?
it's not the topic, but you sat there offering up some of this $170,000 grant, and I'm like, how is that a game changer for anybody in this whole situation? How is it a game changer for getting a $2.25 million or $4.5 million grant? I don't get this.
Well, the idea here is to show them what we've done, which you did not do. You did not mention any of the things we've done so far, the economic development plan, the BOA, the pedestrian, all of those are very key in how they judge communities. How much have you already done?
Liz is 150 words.
Yeah, and I got all those things in this description.
Your description reads as follows. Ballston Spa, settled in 1771, was once a premier spa destination, became a major mill town in the late 1800s, and still retains its unique historic charm today. 55% of the residents are low and moderate income. The geographic area of consideration for New York Forward coincides with the village's Brownfield Opportunity Area nomination area granted 12/20/21. This walkable area contains our central business district and several synergistic project sites, including vacant properties such as Maplewood Manor, Angelica, Ricketts, and potentially to be vacated Saratoga County buildings. Saratoga County is considering moving some or all of their operations in the village, along with several similar sites, including Village Hall, the police station. That's what I said. Several smaller sites, sorry, my bad, including Village Hall, the police station, and Wiswall Park. Angelica is a brownfield site, and Ricketts is a Superfund site. The village has recently completed an economic development plan and a pedestrian and bicycle master plan, and will complete a new comprehensive plan by year end. I believe that's more than 50 words, though, by the way.
Anyway, no, it is, exactly. The number of words. This tells them what we've done already, where our needs are. They will then come back to us and tell us what they think if we can qualify for a New York Forward.
But you're not
grant this-
highlighting the downtown, Liz.
Did you look at the maps?
But in your description, you're saying we're basically assuming that we're going to use some of this money on Maplewood Manor, Angelica, Ricketts, potentially to be vacated Saratoga County
So
buildings.
those are potential projects. They will work.
But these
with
aren't
us.
our projects. This is developer written projects in those cases. Why
Where
would
do
we
you
sacrifice money for small businesses and the buildings that they reside in and the sidewalks that they utilize instead for Maplewood Manor, et cetera, that are going to be developer driven? I don't understand what you're going for here.
Where's the bowling money?
That's exactly right. That's where it's going, to those. To the degree that it gets them anything, it's going to be sucked up in pretty much consultant fees. I hate to tell you the way that this thing is written, the BOA.
CRI New York Forward Program, create active downtown results, attract new business.
You're putting it in R1.
Doesn't matter what the zone is.
It's not a downtown if it's an R1.
Proposal to them, and some other
And we're allowed to refocus it later. I think the issue here is to stay tight to show that we have this tight knit downtown zone that could utilize $2.25 million or $4.5 million. And trust me, we can. The Village Hall, you've told us, is hundreds of thousands of dollars alone. Wiswall Park could use nice upgrade and shot in the arm, and the wall and all the other stuff down there. We've got facades all along that could probably use a lot. Crosswalks you can use it for. Sidewalks, it's not clear. I would say if you can make a compelling rationale that the sidewalks will help make it more vibrant if replaced, you probably couldn't get there.
It's not just about doing those things. It says projects that deal primarily with vacancy and rehabilitation. Vacancy.
Liz, part of the issue of why we don't use the upstairs now that the records are out of village offices is technically you're saying the building can't withstand probably the additional weight of activities upstairs to a certain degree. So there's possibility to make the vacant upstairs into something useful for the village. That's
Are we
part one.
staying, is the idea that we're staying in the Village Hall?
Who knows? But you still have a building
Well,
or two
you gotta
vacant
be- You gotta
floors.
know that in order to do one of these projects, you gotta have projects. And it's gotta be anchor.
That's a
catalytic, or-
project, Liz, whether or not we're staying in it, it's a project.
Anchor catalytic or transformative project will provide employment opportunities, housing choices, and or services for the community.
We have 2 streets worth of ground floor retail, upper floor residential. They need a lot of work. Have you walked through some of these buildings in the upstairs in them?
Well, why didn't you describe those?
Liz, 150 words. I basically told, including almost entirely ground floor retail with residential above, limited to 4 stories, includes Wiswell Park. There are plans to repave Front Street, renovate sidewalks, need to renovate Wiswell Park, village offices near term, etc. You want me to find a space to put their vacant? I mean, fine.
Have you seen what have you looked at the DRI projects that they've done?
Liz, we are not a DRI candidate.
Yes, we are.
No, we are not.
I
You
disagree.
said that the Rome, Oswego, etc. have been those candidates. We aren't
No, they
Rome,
were
we aren't
also
Oswego.
Glenn's,
Don't say
Let's
Glens
go.
Falls.
Watkins Glen, Lake Placid. Let me see. They have always traditionally given one too smaller. They will work with us to determine whether if we include these larger projects, we could have a DRI project to get 10 million.
What's the total potential gain?
From this is $2.25 or $4.5 million, depending on how they award it. They could split it up into 2.25.
That's not gonna go.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm trying to centralize it too. That's the whole thing. One of the things that, my affiliation with sports too much is that the notion coaches always have when they feel they can win something or win a game, they're in a position to, and they end up losing it for whatever reason. And, those are the biggest nightmares for them. We legitimately have a chance to win this because of the story we're telling right now, because what's going on in the county and what we have in our situation with the streets going on here. Anybody that walks through here knows while we have a nice vibrant downtown, we could use some work on that downtown, no doubt about it. Democrat, Republican, Independent, I think we all know this. The issue is ultimately how do you define it? I don't have an interest here in helping Angelica Ricketts, the infirmary of the county, with money that could be utilized for these buildings that won't otherwise get repair probably in these situations.
Everyone said that they're, because of their size, they get the bucks.
Yeah.
So, I think it's interesting to report. I mean, the money doesn't go far, whatever you could potentially get. I think keeping it focused, keeping our, what we are trying to tackle, focus. At least when I signed on the thing, the sort of seminar, the kind of description, it sounded like that, so, I mean, I think we have a motion,
And the motion was
It's
not, is
basically
purpose.
designed for smaller places. than
The
us.
motion is
Yeah,
purposely non-specific too, because we still have 2 days to work out a couple
Well,
Crimson.
I'm just wondering if there's a way to encompass at least part. I realize there's a zoning issue with the county.
and also
Yeah,
infirmary right now, and we don't have much to tell them about what we're gonna do to develop in that area.
right. I mean, that's a real stretch, Liz, to try to say Maplewood Manor is part of our downtown.
Angelica might be the only one that really falls into this because Ricketts is so far removed from the rest of that
So
side.
it's already part of the CBD.
And it's also technically not gonna be available to be done anything with for a couple of years probably at this pace. So I don't know why we would even waste time, trying to flag it when it's not gonna be anything for us in this one.
I say whatever form it takes, whoever's letter, let's do something.
Yeah.
I'm just, if there's a way that we can change the scope parameters that's.
We can shrink it and cut out Ricketts and Mapleview.
Maplewood.
Maplewood. Is it Maplewood?
Maplewood Manor.
I'm sorry. I got Too many Maples.
In the county.
But show, we have vacant properties. I'm not saying you're gonna put all
Like I
the
said,
money.
I will happily say there are vacancies along the stretch, and if you want me to drop down to Angelica with the zone, we can do that without doing too much damage to, I think, calling a small tight zone. But I gotta be honest, I don't want to see money that could be going to things that aren't going to get money otherwise in these situations to a developer that's probably going to be just fine, thank you, ultimately, as long as they propose something useful over there and we give
But I
them the
think
permission.
they are gonna question our ability. I mean, have you looked at what you gotta do for applying for this money, how much detail you need? And we're gonna be doing the BOA grant at the same time?
Yes, and at the same time, this one provides actual assistance all along the line to help us out with that part of it.
Well,
That's one of the
instead
things special
hiring
about
a-
this.
Well, but the thing is, it's time, it's the whole planning process with.
Liz, this is a $2.25 million opportunity. The BOA is $170,000. You know what? If it takes an extra 10 hours a week for me to make sure we got this and Jen has to give some time toward it, we're gonna do it for $2.25 million. I'll do a lot for $2.25 million. Careful, folks.
That's a lot of money, I mean. Think you're- Yeah.
No, it's not 3 against 1. I think we should go for this money as well. I just question our chief and they question, that he should question our capacity to do a BOA project, which we already have the money and we're committed.
Leslie
But you-
Zlativ and I'm gonna tell you about the BOA since you're talking about it so much. Leslie and I have been talking about ways to streamline the process for a village like ours with the resources we have. I'm working closely with the Department of State for that purpose of getting it controllable and maintainable for us to get the money ultimately. Their process is onerous, no doubt, and they're aware of that fact.
And this one is as well. And
There are some things in life worth more.
how many grants have you administered and worked on?
I'm-
No, it's not petty. I'm
This is
sorry.
different. Your tone, your
No, I'm
demeanor
asking
now
him
over this.
if he thinks he can do manage
We
two
have a
grants.
wonderful staff working with him. Please trust the work that they're doing.
I,
This is,
I'm
no, this is enough.
I'm
we have some
concerned about
agreement
this
here.
One at a
staff,
time,
if
please.
they have to work on 2 grants and accomplish their regular duties. That's gonna be too much. I'm warning you, you guys don't know what it takes
Liz,
to do these grants.
out of everything I've seen cross my desk, this is why Scott Ostrander even sent it over to me. This is probably the most achievable grant I've seen for us with a dollar value greater than $1 million. Even NIWEA, I think that we stand a better chance of this than NIWEA right now because there's a limited fund base in that one. We don't have many villages that can stand up and say, we have a thriving, vibrant possibility of a downtown that does very well, but can do so much better. And we also have some extenuating circumstances down the pipe possibly that we really need to prepare for. Please, New York State, help us in this one.
Well, the fact that we've already done a lot of the work that they will go through, because there's a whole series of webinars that they're giving.
I'm
It's
aware.
have you watched the first one?
I have not personally watched the first one. However, I've read through all the materials so far because
Okay.
that was the important part to get this layered out.
A lot of what they're asking, we have already done as part of our economic development study, the bicycle and pedestrian, that we're working on the comp plan, all those questions. So
Can I take one?
we are ahead.
I'm asking him actually.
So you're on board?
Yeah.
Liz.
Oh, yeah, I think we should apply. for
Okay.
it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Are we gonna see? who you are?
Motion carries.
Are we going to see?
Yes.
The recommended list of
Yes.
participants?
Yes. Again, I didn't put it publicly for a reason.
And-
Respect. It's respect not to publish that stuff.
About an hour, that's your record.
Would you like my assistance on creating a more readable map of your area?
Julia, would you like it since you were the one that made the map in the first place?
Sure. I use paint.
Because copy, I couldn't. do
The
that.
copy's that, yeah. I have it in color though, if you want it.
Yeah, the color looks a lot better than the
Expand it over to
black.
High Boulevard. It'd be no problem.
Oh, Bob, stop. Can I get a motion that the mayor be authorized to execute the agreement with with Saratoga County for $15,000 payment related to street signs and related accessories.
I will second.
Mendoza, Raymond, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Other business. Cops.
Oh. Well, I think probably right now, we're probably gonna have to. So I get a better understanding of the situation.
Yep.
We can't get enough part-time help. Is that my understanding?
Correct. The part-timers don't have an obligation to take shifts.
Oh, okay, so we have part-timers, but they're,
Well, we have access to part-timers, but they don't have a set amount of hours that they're
and
obligated to
they're
work.
passing.
In certain cases, yeah,
Yes.
or overtime scenarios, if need be, so yeah.
Yeah.
You can't hire part-timers that come into a shift.
Well, I believe sorry to
Go
interject
ahead, you take
myself,
that because I was
but,
gonna trip on something I don't
to-
want to.
Just speaking with the chief, the issue here is more the evening and night shift, which begins at, 3 PM to 11 PM, 11 PM to 7 PM, or 7 AM, sorry. And that's kind of the dedication for the shift from what I was told. So we have part-time individuals working a lot of shifts, actually. But it's the dedication to those less favorable shifts that a full-time officer could be, scheduled for.
Okay, but when we hire a part-timer, it's not like whenever you want to come in type of thing. It's like, we need you to come on Thursdays, evening shift, that type of thing.
They-
and
they
sign
are-
on for that.
They are offered shifts, and basically this is part of the conundrum of the part-time scenario. It's not an obligation. You're giving up pay in terms of the village, giving up the amount you're paying them for that certainty scenario, or you're retaining pay, basically, as village. Because there is a drop off between full-time and part-time. I'm not gonna name names yet here unless we have to. The officer that's willing to do it is willing to work a split shift of evening and night. And that would go a long way, as Julia pointed out, to fulfill the biggest issues that they're experiencing right now. If you saw how upside down, and I don't think you guys realize it, our roster is in terms of full-time versus part-time, it's pretty ugly.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
I
we've
know.
seen it. We
We've seen
questioned it numerous times. Why do we have a list like this of
Part-timers,
part-timers? Can't you get, because I thought Chief Bush had told me that part-timers can go up to almost full-time.
they can if they determine they want to, but as he pointed out, this is the state of policing in the United States right now. They're not as energetic about taking on risks they don't necessarily need to unless they absolutely need the money. So we're ending up with one-man shifts, and that's a no-no.
Yeah, for me, I think that's scary to think about, honestly. Just speaking on personal experience, there was a situation where on the street around the corner from where I live, a man was beating in someone's door. He was, the way it sounded like just like a really bad situation with drugs, and something was happening. It was scary. And to think that our officers would have to respond to an enraged person who's screaming at the top of their lungs at 2 AM alone, possibly, or not have immediate help or backup, that's concerning. I mean, thankfully, that's maybe, hopefully, I don't know, I don't hear all their calls, but that's not an all the time situation, but there are domestic violence incidents, where you need officers immediately and backup. And there was that fight not that long ago on Milton, I think this could be really kind of scary if we don't address this sooner than later.
From a financial point of view, as I pointed out earlier, the two crossing guards that we don't really foresee ever utilizing, despite the funding for it, is $14,000 plus fringe benefits that total probably out to about $15,000. We also have had savings by the fact that we've only had one crossing guard at most of the time I've been mayor. Now, obviously, we're going to try to get back to two, it looks like. We'll see where we go with that. But then Dave Bush working shifts has essentially forfeited $3,000 of pay that would have gone to part-timers. He doesn't get paid. And I'll be honest with you folks, I'm also going to be fairly lenient with Dave in terms of granting him vacation in a manner he wants, because he's working way too many hours. And I don't know how the contract was written that way, but ultimately, if he's working aggressive amounts of hours to fill voids, then we need to do something right for him at the end of the day. And I will stand up all day and every day and say that.
He's out there right now. He just drove by. I was outside having a cigarette.
That's not supposed to happen.
Seems like there's an awful lot of demands on that one.
You know what, Liz? Yes. But when it's health, safety, and
No, I'm
folks,
saying,
folks,
saying some have higher priority than others, and I think police protection is one of them.
good. Can I get a motion that Sean Thorpe be offered a full-time police officer position for the Ballston Spa Police Department?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fondainza,
I'll second.
trustee Raymond, discussion.
I think that this is something we need to do now. But I think we're gonna have to, at some point, take a long-term, future of policing. Considering the fact that Mr. Chief Bush isn't gonna be chief forever. And when he retires, we're gonna have to take a hard look at that. And we're also gonna have to take a hard look that if we are gonna make a dedicated water fund, that means if we don't wanna raise taxes, we're gonna have to cut agencies. So, well, obviously, that's a conversation for another
We'll
day.
cross that road when we get to it.
Yeah,
That said, Chief Bush is probably gonna haunt me until I die myself, so just trust me on that. All in favor, can we get a roll call on this just to be safe?
Yes, trustee Fondainza. Yeah. Trustee Raymond,
yes.
trustee Cormos,
Yes,
Mayor Ross.
Yes. Folks, can we actually get a little round of applause to the fact that we just handled that the way we did? Because you should not underestimate. That could have been really thorny here, but we saw past political issues for health, safety, and welfare of you and your families, and that's important here. It really is. Public comment. Dick?
Duffy, 21 Division 3 Ballston. North end of the village.
It's Dick Duffy for those that can't hear. Go ahead.
I'm impressed that you agreed with the, about a police officer. I'm not impressed with what Sean said about start cutting agencies if we don't raise taxes. Don't cut public safety, expand public safety. Man, that's our village.
That's right.
Ask Corinne, go ask Corinne, they did, see what the situation there is. You know, they have nothing, they rely on police officers that could be coming from different parts of Corinne. Doesn't work, a lot of trouble. Do whatever you gotta do to fund the police department. I recommend you start looking to fund it more and to start getting more full-time employees. Because I was police commissioner for probably 10 years here in this building, and I know what they go through with part-time now. You can't mandate them to work. You know, you tell them when you hire them, you want 2 shifts per week. Good luck. You know, it works that way for a little while, and then it doesn't work. And if you're not careful, then you got a roller coaster door of part-timers coming in. And now, as the mayor said, you're into the age where people don't even want to be police officers. Look at it, look online and look. Saratoga police officers are switching to Saratoga sheriffs. Sheriff may be going someplace else. They're all doing lateral transfers now. They all want out of one agency into another. It's a big thing. If you feel a full-time police force here, I tell you, it makes it police just so the last state. And they can help with the outside. I watched these guys. They're, you know, they can't probably.
what's the dollar sign for the full-time police force gonna be? What, how much more? I mean, it makes, you know, operationally,
Realistically, you still need a balance, Liz, because you do probably need to swing, you need to be on vacations, and stuff like that, all over the place.
Least for vacation.
Yeah,
yeah,
so,
but
so there's no, the extreme should be ignored. You need something in the middle rationally. The problem is, again, we said it here, we went too far to the part-time end of it. And now we're making the first step at least toward righting that ship a little bit. Let's see how this goes. And if there's a need and money to do it later on, if we end up giving $120,000 a year plus from a wire under the ground firm or something like that, we'll see where this goes and cross that bridge.
historically, how many full-timers have we?
I think we had 6 at one point. We had 6 at one point. So we're at 4 now with this, if the exception.
So that would be the full 24 hours.
Basically, yeah, you got it. Right, sorry,
To reinforce what,
Ray Otten.
Ray Otten, 16 at work at no Ballston. To reinforce what Dick just mentioned about, sheriffs going from here to there to there. I made a text message to someone I knew that's looking for part-time police work. He will be contacting the village by the end of next week. He wants to work. We have to entice them to come to our village. We have to give them something to come here. He would probably come full time because he's not real happy where he is. But to Dick's point, it's the sheriff's department now has about 28 openings between their dispatch center and their road patrol. That came from the sheriff. 2 weeks ago, I don't know how many he's built. But that's crazy. Where are we going to get the officers that are trained to help and do the job here? That's enough about it.
Another thought, what about paying somebody more if they take less disciples? We do. So we already do that.
You're fine.
I heard a lot of talk about insurance for Mark and whatever's being done. I just built a free playground for this village. I don't remember being asked for a certificate of insurance. Did I violate something? Should I have a lot of people working there? I have a lot
You're
of
not a non-for-profit entity.
Huh?
You're not a you don't have to file one at C3.
Yeah, I am.
You are your own.
That was community emergency corps did that. I'm the director. That was my job. That's where that came from. Did I violate something and not know it?
Well, you didn't necessarily violate something, but standard
I was
practice
never
says
asked. I was
that
never
a
asked.
not-for-profit indemnifies the village.
Well, I never got asked, so. They approved me. And that was zero cost to the village, okay? So any money that it would have cost, which was about $15,000 to $18,000 to build that thing, I'd be more than happy to have Mark pay that money.
Thank you.
And there was huge positive press from that. There was an article in the Gazette. It's not done yet. There's going to be TV interviews about this. I've already talked to them. It's going to be on the news. Huge positive representation for this village. Guess what? Nobody asked me for that. I did that on my own. I did that because I love this village. And I'm committed to this village after living here 40 years. Okay? It's what I do. Huge positive. I guarantee you, tomorrow's article in the Gazette is going to talk about all the crap that went on before. That's not what we want. It's just crazy. And hate the roads. We want to get chevrons on there saying bike lanes and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a great idea. We're down to Schenectady on Broadway, they just did that. They have bicycles going down the middle of the lane with an alley. And then the signs came where the cars park. Why can't we do that? It was recommended.
It was. I think we
Let's do
should.
that. Let's do it all over town. Because bicycles can go anywhere. Am I right? They can go down Milton Avenue. They can go down, any street in this village. We put arrows all over. It'll work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
You being facetious.
So,
No, I'm not. It was great on Broadway.
anybody else in the house? Done?
I I just
Donna Martin.
Donna Martin, 20 Chester Court. I just want to thank Chief Bush for his amazing dedication to this village. I mean, if I wasn't here, I would have no idea that he was putting in so much of his own time. And clearly, that man loves his village. And also want to thank Mary for supporting him. I'm just really impressed. And also, I do want to thank the board for voting yes on the birdhouse project. I think sometimes we don't realize we're all pretty comfortable. There are families in this village where like a birdhouse for free, a project is really a big deal. Yeah. And I'm just glad you voted yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the house? Anybody in Zoom land? Oh, well, hold on. Anybody in Zoom land? We'll give one more second for folks in Zoom land when I say Michelle Bouchard, go ahead.
I'm Michelle Shard, 14 Bath Street. It is market. Every Wednesday, the Christmas, the holiday parade, the bird houses, the car show, the events, it is marketing because we're not the world isn't the way it used to be. In our business, we have people moving here all the time. They come to our store. I meet people moving here all the time. They know what's going on. It's not just because they happen to be down and read and set. It's online. They're looking for the place to be. There's more mobility in the world now because of the pandemic and everything else. And they're coming here and they're looking for the quality of life. And when you kind of poo-poo, or you go, oh, nickel and dime it, I get you're trying to protect the taxpayers' money. But this is the stuff that brings the taxpayers. And it's little things. And as she said, there are families that maybe that's going to be their project or whatever. To be so single-minded on the amount of money. There were other things that went on, but again, who knows, for getting stuff done. Nice job.
Thank you. Zoom looks empty. We done? Board comments, questions, concerns, anybody? No need for executive session. May I get a motion that the vouchers number 22-01983 and 23-00012 through 23-00441 be audited in the meeting, be adjourned at 10:41 p.m. Trustee Fondanza? I give trustee Cormos discussion. All in favor? Aye. Here's the theme song and roll the credits.